Chapter 1463. Ruan Faxben. The old woman's pupils constricted. In an instant, all three of their gazes converged on Ruan Faxben. Ruan Faxben's heart skipped a beat. Something's wrong. He could vaguely sense that something was wrong. Sorry, I think I went to the wrong place. Ruan Faxben subconsciously wanted to turn around and leave. Just then, a hand grabbed the back of Ruan Faxben's collar. Let go. Ruan Faxben clearly didn't like people grabbing his collar. Wait! The old woman called out hurriedly. She didn't want people to fight in her shop. There were too many items in the shop, and it was too small. If they made a move here, it was very likely that they would damage her goods. But neither Ruan Faxben nor Chen Zhao were willing to listen to others. Ruan Faxben turned around and threw a cloud of shiny silver dust at Chen Zhao. Damn! The old woman yelled in panic. Wire dodge. It was explosive magic phosphorus. Normal magic phosphorus didn't do much damage to the human body, but it did a lot to spirits. But this high explosive magic phosphorus required a very high level of alchemy. Through the purification of magic phosphorus, its functionality could be improved. High explosive magic phosphor was extremely destructive to people and the surrounding environment. The moment Ruan Faxi scattered the high explosive magical phosphor, it stuck to his face and body like a magnet. The old woman was startled. This was Ruan Faxi, a rarely seen alchemist. He was actually able to combine high explosive magic phosphorus with a magnetic effect to completely absorb the enemy's body, thereby causing greater damage to the enemy while reducing the damage to himself. Chen Zhao felt a burning sensation on his face, but he wasn't hurt much. Only his clothes were burned. Chen Zhao looked down at his clothes, and then at Ruan Faxben. Ruan Faxben's expression changed. His opponent didn't react to explosive magic phosphorus at all. Strengthening. Ruan Faxben wanted to change tactics, but Chen Zhao's fist had already landed on his stomach. Ruan Faxben felt an intense pain, as if his stomach was cramping. Then his body tilted, and Chen Zhao tossed him back into the shop. He smashed many things along the way. Chen Zhao wiped off the residue on his body and stared at Ruan Faxben in annoyance. It had been a long time since anyone dared to make a move against him. Ruan Faxi held his stomach and struggled to get up. Seeing Chen Zhao approach, Ruan Faxi chanted an incantation. Light flashed in his hand, and a sword appeared. Don't come over again. Pa! Chen Zhao swung his hand and slapped Ruan in the face. Ruan Faxi was already in a daze. Just because he had a weapon in his hand didn't mean that he was strong. Criminals carry weapons because they are afraid. Chen Zhao pressed Ruan's head into a water tank. He didn't care what was in the tank. It was probably some kind of magic material. Anyway, it was emitting a trace of magic fluctuations. The old woman and Wire watched Chen Zhao torture Ruan Faxben in silence. They were in no position to intervene. Besides, who were they supposed to help? Of course, it wasn't that he didn't have a stance. For example, their fight had damaged the goods in the magic shop. However, none of this was important. A few minutes later, Chen Zhao picked up the dying Ruan Faxi and stood up. Calculate the losses here, and send the bill to the supernatural organization. Thank you. Chen Zhao took out his phone. Hey, West, come to 558 Downey Street. Send 2 more people. Bring someone back to HQ. Sir, can the losses here be offset by compensation? The old woman asked with a smile. No, Chen Zhao said. Compensation is for the victims. He's responsible for the losses here. But we're victims too. You're legally responsible too. Of course, you can also ask him for compensation for the losses from selling the defective goods he provided. But he's in your hands now. You can write a report on the economic losses and give it to us. We'll evaluate it according to the actual situation. Kid, do you know who I am? Ruan Faxi still wanted to struggle. Ruan Faxi, right? Since you know, do you want to die? Do you know how many spiritualists I know? Just one word from me. Chen Zhao lifted one of Ruan Faxi's fingers and pinched it gently. Chen Zhao's cruel laughter accompanied Ruan Faxi's pained screams. Everyone you know died because of your alchemy. If you lose all 10 fingers, can you still use alchemy? So sorry. I was joking. Ruan Faxi was about to cry. You're just messing with people by saying harsh words. Ruan Faxi's heart was bitter. Why don't you find out who I, Ruan Faxi, am? I do know many spiritualists, but they're not my friends. All of them want my life. As long as Ruan Faxi was on the street and shouted, Ruan Faxi. In 10 minutes, 100 spiritualists would gather to take his life. 20 minutes later, West arrived with his men. Seeing Ruan Faxi in Chen Zhao's hands, West was both surprised and delighted. Haha, Ruan Faxi, you didn't expect this, did you? You're in my hands, haha. Neither Chen Zhao nor West's companion, Harrell, expected West to act so strangely. More accurately, he lost his composure. Ruan Faxi clearly knew West too. However, Chen Zhao had already beaten him into a pig's head. It was impossible to see his expression. Chen Zhao tossed Ruan Faxi to West. Send him back to the headquarters. We'll talk when I'm free. Then before that, West clearly had other intentions. Before that, you can do whatever you want. Don't kill him. West and Ruan Faxi's expressions were completely different. One was extremely dejected, while the other was extremely excited. Chen Zhao didn't know what grudge they had. However, Chen Zhao was clearly happy to fulfill his subordinate's wish. As one of the founding members of the association, West was Chen Zhao's most trusted and reliable subordinate. Usually, West was very calm and collected. He'd never had such an exaggerated reaction. For West to be so excited, he probably had an irreconcilable feud with Ruan Faxi, who killed his father and stole his wife. By the way, let him explain what happened first. If he doesn't want to say it, our family's meat grinder should still be working. Chapter 1464. Boss, why didn't you let me teach that Asian a lesson? Wire asked angrily. However, she only dared to say this after Chen Zhao left. The old woman Mephistos glanced at Wire. He's an enhancer. In such a small space, he can tear you apart before you can even use your magic. Plus, he has the supernatural organization behind him. We don't need to offend an organization. What's there to be afraid of? It's like a waste camp these years. I heard that the supernatural organization expanded their recruitment. Many powerful newcomers joined, Mephistos said. For example, that Asian. Is he powerful? He's just an enhancer, and he's a wizard. The information Mephistos could get was basically from customers who came to the magic shop to buy things. After all, she didn't have a family or power. She couldn't build an intelligence department. She hadn't fought anyone in decades either. The information she could get was very limited. Chen Zhao first got into West's car. He looked at his clothes. West, take off your clothes and lend them to me. I'm going to the airport later. West glanced at Helith and Moore. Their clothes clearly weren't suitable for Chen Zhao. After putting on West's clothes, Chen Zhao immediately felt that they were short. After all, West was old. Chen Zhao's figure was only average compared to Caucasians. However, he was much stronger than West, so Chen Zhao felt a little tense. If he used a bit of force, his clothes would burst. Forget it. I'll go buy clothes myself. Chen Zhao shook his head. You guys go back first. Thankfully, this was Downey Street. There were brands everywhere. Chen Zhao spent a few $1,000s to change his clothes. He casually threw the salesgirl's number into the trash can outside. Chen Zhao adjusted his collar. Having a suitable set of clothes was more comfortable than finding random clothes. However, as soon as he left the store, someone bumped into his shoulder. The person who bumped into Chen Zhao's shoulder was a man about his size. However, the man's hair was neither black nor white. He didn't bump into Chen Zhao on purpose. His gaze was unfocused and he was a bit distracted. After bumping into Chen Zhao's shoulder, he apologized. Chen Zhao made eye contact with the man. Say this man is a good person. This man has the smell of blood on him. However, from the look in his eyes, it seemed like he had been hit by something. He looked uneasy. Subconsciously, Chen Zhao touched his pocket to see if he was missing anything. Of course, this action was also seen by the man. The man was a bit angry. He glared at Chen Zhao and left. Chen Zhao felt rather awkward too. His actions were indeed rather unfriendly. Chen Zhao dawdled for another hour. Then, he slowly headed to the airport. It was only 4 in the afternoon when he arrived at the airport, although Alex's flight landed at 5 o'clock. However, Chen Zhao didn't see Alex walk out of the airport entrance until 5:30. They hadn't seen each other for nearly a year, but Alex hadn't changed much. Beautiful sister-in-law naturally, Alex's hairstyle had changed. She kept her hair short, which made her look a bit more heroic. He was dressed in plain white, with loose trousers embroidered with a few dark vine flowers. His shirt was a pure cotton vest and a small suit jacket. His eyes were still sharp and experienced, and his expression was still proud and confident. However, every time he looked at Chen Zhao, there would be some dissatisfaction and enmity in her eyes. It was like this a year ago, and it was still like this a year later. When Alex walked out of the airport entrance, she lifted her briefcase to Chen Zhao. "What? It's your honor to help a lady carry her bag," Alex said matter-of-factly. "Ms. Alex, you seem to have forgotten that I'm your employer for now." Alex walked up and held Chen Zhao's wrist. She leaned her head on his shoulder and picked up her phone with her other hand. Smiling, she said, "Come smile." "What?" Chen Zhao subconsciously looked at the phone. Crack. Alex immediately let go of Chen Zhao. "Oh, what's your girlfriend's phone number?" Chen Zhao's face twitched. He snatched Alex's briefcase and looked at her in annoyance. "Delete the photo. Can I keep it as a souvenir? I have a company that doesn't have a legal consultant yet," Chen Zhao said calmly. "I'm planning to form a legal team soon." Alex deleted the photo without hesitation. "Are you planning to hire me for a long time? My fees aren't cheap." Alex had her own law firm. Actually, other than Chen Zhao, Alex had come this time because Jerlin's birthday was coming up. That was why she'd taken the initiative to come. On the other hand, Chen Zhao's legal team was very attractive to her. There were quite a lot of lawyers in the law firm. If Chen Zhao handed the legal team to her, it would be much easier to deal with. If Chen Zhao handed the legal team to her, the law firm's business would increase greatly. The so-called legal team didn't just work for Chen Zhao's company. They could also accept business from other people or companies. However, they couldn't exist as a team. In other words, when Chen Zhao's company needed legal support, they had to be responsible for Chen Zhao's company first. "Don't you want to stay in L, eh? That way, you can see Jerlin more often," Chen Zhao said with a smile. "So can you lower the fees?" "I want to see Jerlin, but don't think about lowering the fees. You're using your daughter as a bargaining chip. Don't you feel ashamed? If you don't want Jerlin to know your shameless actions when she grows up, you better raise the fees. You're using this to threaten me, which means you're not a good person either. If you don't want Jerlin to know your true colors, I'll lower the fees by half." Alex knew that Chen Zhao was a university professor, and that he was quite rich. She also knew that Chen Zhao's identity was special. He seemed to be involved in some shady business. Plus, she'd seen Chen Zhao's subordinates and even his own people. But she really didn't know that Chen Zhao had a company. He also had to form a legal team. Usually, a small or medium-sized company would have a legal consultant. Only large companies could form a legal team. Otherwise, they wouldn't have enough money to support the fees of a legal team. After all, a legal team would cost at least $2 or $3 million a year. If a company's annual profit was only $10 million, only a lunatic would form a legal team. Chapter 1465. The legal team couldn't just pay the people in the team. For example, a company in New York had infringed on Chen Zhao's company. In that case, the entire legal team would be mobilized. They would have to reimburse the air tickets for a round trip, as well as their meals and lodging. Occasionally, they would have to go out and eat at public expense. If it was a team of 20 people, it might cost $4 to $5 million a year. Of course, Chen Zhao estimated that his beer brand was still a mid-tier company. A team of around 10 people would be enough. Now that the company was bigger, there were more troubles. Chen Zhao knew that the brewery had been in a lot of trouble recently. Even the government of Mountain Town was looking for trouble. Money moved people's hearts. Even Dion Sloat, who had begged Chen Zhao in the past, had changed his attitude now. The townspeople were the same. They felt that they should have a share in the brewery. Chen Zhao could only chuckle at this. Fortunately, Amira had reminded him back then and killed the potential trouble. Now, both the town government and the townspeople were making trouble, but they had no problem with Chen Zhao. Their biggest move was to stop production. They would use the fact that many of the brewery's employees were townspeople to incite them to go on strike. This could only be used once against Chen Zhao. Once they did that, Chen Zhao would fire all the townspeople, even if he had to stop production for a few days. Chen Zhao gave them a high salary. If they still didn't know what was good for them, Chen Zhao wouldn't go easy on them. Back then, Chen Zhao and Denver had been on guard against this. Now, half of the town's income came from his brewery. Aside from profits, Chen Zhao's reputation in the town was quite good. 2 days ago, Dion Sloat had called him and wanted him to be the honorary mayor of Mountain Town. Chen Zhao wouldn't be an honorary mayor unless he was crazy. Dion's intention was too obvious. He wanted to give some shares of the brewery to the town government. Although Dion Sloat's idea was to contribute to the town, however, he would be sacrificing Chen Zhao's personal interests. Once the shares were distributed, it would be even more troublesome. The town government could even use the shares to participate in the decision-making. They might even be used by their competitors. This was something Chen Zhao couldn't tolerate. Denver, the agent and collaborator, was very clear about his identity and position. This was why Chen Zhao liked to work with Denver. Perhaps he had ulterior motives, but he knew what Chen Zhao was thinking. Chen Zhao might not care about the brewery at all, but he had a firm hold on the shares. Moreover, it wasn't listed, so he didn't even have the ability to dilute Chen Zhao's shares. The other party that owned the shares of the brewery was Citibank. Chen Zhao liked the deep cooperation with the bank, and the fact that the bank wouldn't interfere with the management. As long as he could continue to make money for the bank would be happy to be his grandson. Therefore, Chen Zhao would rather sell the shares to the bank than to Winnip. Of course, the price was also a factor. Moreover, Winnip was a controlling woman. Once she got the shares, she might not stop even if Chen Zhao was her son-in-law. Fei Lai didn't say anything. After all, neither Chen Zhao nor Winnip wanted Fei Lai to be in a difficult position. After all, being stuck in the middle was the most uncomfortable. Usually, when Winnip contacted Chen Zhao, she would first ask if Fei Lai was okay. Chen Zhao wanted to say that they were talking business when Fei Lai wasn't around. To Winnip it was business, but to Chen Zhao, it was harassment. Previously, Winnip had wanted to use the shares of Mara Supermarket to exchange for the shares of the brewery. However, Chen Zhao rejected her. Mara Supermarket's value was 4 times higher than Mountain Beer's. But Mara Supermarket was a listed company. If Chen Zhao got the shares, he could only wait for the value of Mara Supermarket shares to rise. Mara Supermarket's profits would barely be equal to Mountain Beer's. But with the same shares, the dividends wouldn't be as much as Mountain Beer. Chen Zhao had to be crazy to exchange for Mara Supermarket shares. After harassing Chen Zhao for more than a month, Winnip stopped. Chen Zhao didn't say anything harsh, but his attitude was the same every time. No exchange, no sale. Winnip couldn't force Chen Zhao with a knife. In the end, she could only give up. In the past month, Winnip had also played the emotional card. For example, Fei Lai would inherit the shares in the future. She might even inherit the shares of Mara Supermarket too. Chen Zhao didn't say anything. He wasn't interested in Mara Supermarket. Chen Zhao's way of rejecting Winnip was that if Winnip only wanted to keep the shares, he could transfer the shares Winnip wanted to buy to Fei Lai. Winnip completely gave up on convincing Chen Zhao. Actually, Chen Zhao could understand Winnip's thoughts. This was because Mara Supermarket's current development was largely controlled by Chen Zhao. She was such a strong person. She wouldn't give her fate to someone else so easily, even if that person was her son-in-law. "Have you arranged a place for me?" "Yes," Chen Zhao said. "My friend's hotel. You really won't let me stay at your house?" Alex looked at Chen Zhao aggressively. Chen Zhao could feel Alex's gaze, but he ignored it. "It's too small," Chen Zhao said shamelessly. Chen Zhao didn't want to be awkward. Alex was Jerlin's sister. Plus, he'd had a relationship with Jerlin. To be honest, Chen Zhao didn't understand what kind of feelings Jerlin had for him. Jerlin didn't want to marry. Why would she give birth to Jerlin? When Chen Zhao saw Jerlin, he was so touched. He thanked Jerlin for bringing him this daughter. Chen Zhao had never been a sentimental person. Even when he'd broken up in China, He'd only been sad for a day or two before letting it go. But when he saw Jerlin through the nursery, his emotions rushed to his head. Because of Jerlin, Chun Zhao felt that the world was so bright and beautiful. Looking at Chun Zhao, Alex still said her intention. I want to see that woman. This was what Chun Zhao was afraid of. What's there to see? Can't you just pretend that she doesn't exist? You can see her on Jerlin's birthday too. Chun Zhao still didn't want Alex to see Li. Who knew what her motive was? What if she was there to fight? Let little Jerlin watch her mother and her aunt fight? Coward, are you that afraid of me seeing her? Is that necessary? Chapter 1466. Are you sure you didn't go the wrong way? Alex looked at the increasingly secluded road. Chun Zhao silently turned his head, his expression dark. Huh. It's too late for you to realize now. What are you talking about? What are you going to do to me? Alex immediately tightened her collar. Do you want to rape and then kill? Or kill and then rape? After that, I'll find a place with good feng shui and bury you. No. I'm so scared. You don't have any talent for acting. Chun Zhao rolled his eyes. To be honest, I don't understand why you want to live in such a secluded place. Alex was serious. In her opinion, Chun Zhao was rich. Even if he didn't want to live in the city, he didn't have to live in such a secluded place. I'm too poor to buy land in LA. Alex ignored Chun Zhao's pretense of being poor. A person who could take out a few $1 million a year to support a team of lawyers was considered poor? If he was poor, then close to 100% of the world's people were poor. However, when she saw Mingyue Villa on the cliff and the long coastline in the distance, she finally understood what Chun Zhao meant. If this land was in LA, it would probably cost $10 billion. But even in a place far from the city, this place was still indescribable. But even in a place far from the city, it was still indescribable. The sunset here, the waves here, the lush green mountains here. There was also the dreamlike villa. Alex could already be considered a rich person, but she still couldn't help but curse. Evil capitalists. Chun Zhao's car entered the parking lot. Alex entered the yard by herself. She saw a woman lying on a bench. A pair of children were lying on her. She recognized the older girl. It was Jerlin. Little Jerlin seemed to have felt something. He abruptly raised his head to look at Alex. But Jerlin didn't recognize Alex. The last time she saw Alex, she was too young. Jerlin tilted her head and looked at Alex. She stared at Alex in a daze. Just then Fei Lai woke up. She stood up and turned to look at Alex. Hello, are you Jerlin's aunt? Holding a child in one arm, Fei Lai smiled at Alex. Before Chun Zhao brought Alex here, he didn't tell her either. Even Fei Lai had never seen Alex before. But Fei Lai still recognized Alex at first glance. She didn't know why. Maybe it was because Alex had Jerlin's aura on her. Mom, is she Jerlin's aunt? Jerlin's eyes widened. Alex walked over. She was sad that little Jerlin had forgotten about her. However, this was inevitable. After all, little Jerlin was only a month old at the time. Alex was even more furious at Chun Zhao. It was all his fault for taking little Jerlin away from her. Alex came forward. Little Jerlin, did you forget Aunt Alex? Little Jerlin rolled her eyes and opened her arms. Aunt Alex, give me a hug. Alex was overjoyed, and Fei Lai took the opportunity to send little Jerlin into Alex's arms. Hug, hug, hug. Little Larissa also wanted a hug. Carrying little Jerlin, Alex asked curiously, Is this your and Chen's child? Our second child, Fei Lai emphasized with a smile. Then I can hug her too. Fei Lai also placed little Larissa into Alex's arms. Holding the two little balls in her arms, Alex felt like her heart was about to melt. Chun Zhao had already walked in. He'd purposely delayed the time to come in. He mainly wanted Fei Lai and Alex to interact first. Fei Lai glanced at Chun Zhao from the corner of her eye. She could guess Chun Zhao's intentions pretty well. Chun Zhao didn't know how to handle situations like this. How could Alex not understand? This was why women dealt with these situations much more clearly than men. Chun Zhao was putting his thoughts on the two women. If one day, a man came out to steal his two daughters, Chun Zhao would probably beat him to death. Alex was a lawyer and a woman, so she was very talkative. She also had a higher EQ than Chun Zhao. If Chun Zhao couldn't solve things rationally, he would solve them with violence. Alex and Fei Lai had a pleasant chat. They also talked from a woman's perspective. They talked about pregnancy, parenting, beauty. Chen Zhao had a few underlings prepare dinner in the kitchen. Alex didn't expect Chen Zhao to be so good at cooking. Chen Zhao gladly accepted it. But Fei Lai knew that many of the dishes here were made by the underlings. After dinner, Fei Lai went to put little Larissa to sleep. Little Jerlin didn't sleep so early. She would definitely go to the beach at this time. However, Jerlin still couldn't press the button for the elevator. So Princess had to do it every time. Alex came to Chen Zhao's side. Walk with me to the beach. Alex had never been to such an empty beach. She couldn't help but sigh at the evil capitalists again. Little Jerlin was running wildly with a few pets. She could hear Jerlin's laughter every now and then. It's not bad for Jerlin to follow you, Alex said. What do you mean it's not bad? Chen Zhao was very unhappy with Alex's words. I'm her father. Of course it's best for her to follow me. Alex didn't argue with Chen Zhao. Actually, she knew better than anyone else. However, people always had unrealistic fantasies. If Chen Zhao didn't treat Jerlin well, then she had the right and position to take her away. Or if Fei Lai didn't like Jerlin, unfortunately, there were no ifs. Chen Zhao and Fei Lai treated Jerlin well. Jerlin was very happy here. Her quality of life wouldn't be worse than if Alex took care of her. By the way, why don't you hire a few servants for such a big manor? Will you and Fei Lai be able to handle it? Alex didn't quite understand. How could two adults manage such a large place? I don't have money. How about you be a maid? I'll pay you $2,000 a month. Chen Zhao looked at Alex shamelessly. Alex glared at him. Don't you have a yacht? Why do you want to order another one? You don't understand how rich people think. What about the private planes that rich people have? How come you don't have one? How do you know? You do. No. Chen Zhao shrugged. That's too troublesome. If I put it in a civil airport, I'll need to take care of it and restrict it. If I put it in a private airport, it'll be even more expensive. Plus, I don't go out much. It's too wasteful to buy a private plane. Chapter 1467. Alex probably didn't sleep much that night. That night, she checked the original contract that Seagate had sent. After confirming that there were no traps, the two went to Seagate the next day. Although Chen Zhao had already confirmed that he was going to sign the contract with Seagate, Ofer Labil was still relieved when he heard that Chen Zhao was coming. But even if they were going to sign the contract, they wouldn't do it immediately. There were still some details that needed to be negotiated. For example, maintenance, after-sales services, and the price flexibility. They all needed to be negotiated. However, Ofer Labil's request to the company's legal representative was that everything be done quickly. This contract was a milestone project for Seagate. Even if Seagate made less money, they still hoped to sign the contract as soon as possible. Each of the top companies in the world had completed at least 3 world-class super yacht projects. Seagate was only a large company. Although it had good sales every year, it was all from small and medium-sized yachts. It wasn't that they didn't have the skills for super yachts, but people rarely asked them to customize them. Moreover, Chen Zhao had been introduced by Steven. In Seagate's eyes, Chen Zhao definitely had a powerful network. That was why Seagate couldn't wait to keep this customer. The final cost was $328 million. The flexible space could add another $30 million, and the down payment was $100 million. It was estimated to be completed in 13 months, which meant that it could be completed before Christmas next year. If it exceeded the time limit, Seagate would have to pay for the delay. But now, the yacht construction technology had been upgraded many times. The construction time had been greatly reduced too. It wasn't like before, where it could easily take 3 or 4 years. Moreover, Seagate had a large shipyard with perfect construction techniques and technology. It was basically impossible to exceed the time limit. Next, it was Alex's job to supervise the construction quality and progress. After signing the contract, Alex went to stay in the hotel. She got along well with Fei Lai, but it was still a bit awkward. Of course, Chen Zhao had also booked the hotel. It was Del and Risvar's hotel. Now their hotel was quite popular. Chen Zhao had helped too. The Dashan beer, nameless wine, and purple brew he provided were all popular among the hotel customers. Alex, you can be my personal legal consultant from now on. Sure. Alex nodded. Private lawyers didn't actually need to pay any fees. They just needed to look for Alex first. Of course, with Chen Zhao and Alex's relationship, Alex would definitely choose to help Chen Zhao first if something happened. Alex still had a lot of things to do, such as discussing the company's legal team with Denver. Chen Zhao arrived at the headquarters of the association. He didn't know if Ruan Faxi, who was captured yesterday, told him anything. Ruan Faxi was currently locked up in the dungeon. There were quite a few residents in the dungeon. They were all captured and locked here by Chen Zhao or other members of the association. Of course, the association's dungeon was not like a real prison. The conditions were much better. Everyone had a single room, and there was an electronic door with a floor-to-ceiling window. There were 20 cubicles in 2 rows. Basically, as long as one stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, the occupants of each cubicle would be able to see each other. Ruan Faxi, on the other hand, was lying on the bed, feeling rather bored. Just then, Morez came down from upstairs. She came down not only to see her former companions, but also to retrieve Ruan Faxi's copy. The association hadn't had any group activities recently, so Morez didn't have many opportunities to make contributions. She couldn't even reduce her companion's sentence. Come out, Morez said. The president wants to see you. When Ruan Faxi came yesterday, he'd been beaten up by West. It wasn't magic but pure beating. Then Morez treated him. Ruan Faxi walked out with his head lowered. After walking out of the dungeon, Ruan Faxi was brought to the hall. Because he'd made too many enemies, he would always ask about the organization or power in a city before coming. Not long ago, he'd come to Los Angeles. He'd heard of the supernatural organization, but it was said to be a third-rate organization with few members and weak abilities. So Ruan Faxi didn't take it to heart. Up until now, he hadn't found anything too powerful about the supernatural organization. But he didn't expect it to be so powerful. This made him confused. Why was the supernatural organization so powerful? Was it because they had the government backing them? It should be noted that in the spirit world, organizations that had a government background were not very important. In China's words, such organizations were like the government's dogs. West stood beside Chen Zhao. West, did you get anything from him? No, he's stubborn, West said. You didn't torture him? Chen Zhao was surprised. Judging from West's attitude toward Ruan Faxi yesterday, there should be some deep hatred between them. Now that Ruan Faxi was in Chen Zhao's hands, he had no reason not to take revenge. But looking at Ruan Faxben, he seemed to be having a good time. Chen Zhao had beaten him into a pig's head yesterday, but the swelling had gone down today, and he'd even gone through treatment. This treatment didn't seem like there was any deep hatred between him and West at all. Chen Zhao didn't ban West. There was no need for him to restrain himself like this, right? Chen Zhao looked at West, confused. West's gaze was calm. He didn't look as excited as when he'd seen Ruan Faxi yesterday. Chen Zhao didn't understand what West was thinking. Was it not easy to attack? He probably didn't have such concerns. Beat him up first. Chen Zhao turned to Klaus. Don't kill him. Huh. Ruan Faxi's mouth gaped open. Don't say anything. You've caused a lot of trouble for me and the organization, so beating you up is already a light punishment. Klaus went up and dragged Ruan Faxi out. Ruan Faxi wanted to resist, but he didn't have Klaus' monstrous strength. He was dragged out of the hall directly. Soon, cries of pain came from outside. West, don't you have a grudge against him? Why don't you take revenge? Chen Zhao asked, confused. President, we lack an alchemist, West said. Ruan Faxi has a bad reputation outside, but he's really talented. His alchemy skills are very high. Chapter 1468. In order to destroy a person's mind, one had to destroy their body first. When Ruan Faxi was dragged in, he was already covered in cuts and bruises. Of course, Chen Zhao didn't do it to destroy his mind. He only did it to help West. Raz, heal him, Chen Zhao said. Raz went up and cast 2 healing spells on Ruan. One reduced the injuries, and the other stopped the pain. If you keep playing dead, I'll beat you up again. Chen Zhao looked at Ruan, who was lying on the ground. Ruan immediately sat up, not daring to play dead anymore. Sir, I'm innocent. Ruan Faxi wanted to clear his name as soon as he opened his mouth. Cut the crap. Did you sell this comb at the magic shop? Yes. So you're purposely hurting people? You have to know that this is against the rules of the supernatural world. Selling highly harmful magical items or artifacts. Plus, this time, a normal person was involved, and a person died. It happened in Los Angeles. So the supernatural organization has the right to sentence you to death. Do you have anything to say? West said, trying to scare him. West, don't take revenge. I didn't know there was a problem with the comb. You made it. Yes. Ruan lowered his head, his face pale. Then tell me you didn't know there was a problem with it? No. Ruan Faxi shouted. You said it was, and now you say no. Is it true or not? I worked with someone else to make it. Ruan Faxbin yelled. Originally, he and I wanted to make a magic tool that could connect to the existence of another dimension. The user could borrow the power of the existence of another dimension. But the final product we made failed. The wooden comb only had a bit of magic left. Compared to our investment, it was a complete failure. So we put the wooden comb in the magic shop to sell. I didn't think anything would happen. Do you think we'll believe you? You have a criminal record. And it's a notorious one. It really wasn't me. I didn't know this would happen either. But it's already happened. Also, that's not all. Chen Zhao tossed a bill before Ruan. This is the bill for the goods you damaged in the magic shop yesterday. Wait, you have a share too. Ruan Faxi trembled in fear when he saw the bill. The number read $26. 5 million. If you don't resist, the goods won't be damaged, Chen Zhao said matter-of-factly. Also, because there are 2 victims in this incident. One is an ordinary person, and the other is a deceased person. So they also asked for compensation, a total of 4 million USD. You have 3 choices, West said. What choice? First, you have to compensate for the loss of the magic shop, as well as the victim's compensation application, and then you will be locked up in our dungeon for 3 years. Ruan Faxi's body trembled. How could he pay so much money? It was more than $30 million. I don't have that much money, Ruan said with a sad face. Then choose the second option. If you don't pay, we'll directly sentence you to death. Anyway, based on your past misdeeds, killing you is not an injustice. It will also save you the trouble of harming others in the future. Wait. I choose the third option. I choose the third option. Are you sure you want the third option? Yes, I choose the third option. West threw a document and a pen in front of Ruan Faxben. Sign this document. Ruan Faxi opened the document and read. The supernatural organization would temporarily pay for the magic shop and the victim's compensation. Ruan Faxi would also become a temporary member of the supernatural organization. The organization would pay Ruan Faxi a base salary of $10,000 every month. At the same time, they would deduct 50% of the payment. He would be free when he paid the money. After reading the document, Ruan Faxi's hands trembled. He did not have that much money for the first option. The second option was death. The third option was being trapped for the rest of his life. He would have to work for the supernatural organization until his death. The total compensation was $31. 5 million. If he paid $5,000 every month, he would have to pay for 6,300 months, or 525 years. As long as he signed the document, he would be bound by the supernatural organization for the rest of his life. Ruan Faxi looked up at West. West, do you have to be so ruthless? Yes, West said indifferently. Torturing Ruan Faxben was too unskillful. With Ruan Faxi's personality, he might not yield even if he was beaten up a few times. But if he had no freedom for the rest of his life, and was ordered around by West, was there anything more painful than that? I choose the second option. Ruan Faxi clenched his teeth and tossed the pen aside. Kill me. Good, you're brave. I admire you, Chen Zhao called. Ruan Faxi was delighted. It seemed that his courage had gained Chen Zhao's approval. Maybe they were just testing him. Chen Zhao's second sentence made Ruan Faxi vomit blood. Give him a dignified death. Ruan Faxi's heart trembled. A dignified death? What was a dignified death? Calm. I have to calm down. He's definitely testing me. Let's go and experience your dignified death, West said with a smile. Just then, Klaus walked up and lifted Ruan Faxi up. Ruan Faxi's legs were trembling. He walked out of the room in trepidation. Acting, they were all acting. At this time, two people pushed a machine in front of Ruan Faxben and turned it on. The machine emitted a loud and high-frequency noise. It was very uncomfortable. What's this? A meat grinder, West said indifferently. Our president rarely uses it to kill people. In fact, Chen Zhao had only used the mincing machine to kill once. Ever since then, Chen Zhao never used the mincing machine to kill again. Too disgusting. Don't worry. The process is fast. You might not feel any pain at all, West said softly. But you'd better go in quickly. If you go in slowly, it'll be uncomfortable. Do you need help? I can just stuff you in, Klaus said understandingly. Last time, that person rejected my good intentions and said he wanted to go in by himself. Then he went in with his feet first. In the end, half of his body was stuck outside. Chapter 1469. Ruan Faxben shuddered. I suddenly feel like the third option isn't bad. He couldn't hold on anymore. If he did, he'd really be thrown into the meat grinder. West sneered. Why was he acting like a big shot here? He knew Ruan Faxben too well. This guy had never been a man who would sacrifice himself for justice. Ruan looked at Chen Zhao. Sir, I'm a member of the supernatural organization now, right? Of course, Chen Zhao said, smiling. You signed the contract. Then I think we should talk about the pay first, Ruan said, scratching his face. Do you think we're giving you too much? Chen Zhao smiled at Ruan. It's okay. I can give you a discount. No. Rumble. At this moment, Klaus turned on the meat mincing machine at an untimely time. Ruan Faxi was startled. If they continued talking, their momentum would be weakened. Bandits, these bandits. In the end, Ruan Faxben accepted the contract. It was more like a contract than a contract. It wasn't legally binding. There was even a magic seal on it. Chen Zhao had signed the same contract in the past. Everyone had signed the same magic contract. Okay, you're one of us now. Do your best. Chen Zhao patted Ruan's shoulder with a smile. Ruan Faxi looked at Chen Zhao with tears in his eyes. Arrange a place for him to stay and some work, Chen Zhao said. Oh, and a studio for him. For example, Padalu, Jalag, Dongye Tianchi, Jinkira, and Morrez all had their own laboratories or workshops. As for Ruan Faxben, as the most orthodox alchemist, he naturally needed a workshop. After Ruan was taken away, Chen Zhao couldn't help but ask, West, what's the grudge between you and Ruan? Nothing. West clearly didn't want to talk about it. He turned and left. Chen Zhao frowned. He really couldn't understand West's thoughts. In terms of deep hatred, it was understandable that West had killed Ruan Faxben. However, West didn't kill Ruan Faxben. Instead, he pulled him into the association. But to say that there was no enmity, the way West looked at Ruan Faxben was rather strange. Chen Zhao was really curious about the relationship between West and Ruan Faxben. Should he find a chance to ask Ruan Faxben about the situation? But recently, Ruan Faxi should not be in the mood to chat with him. He turned and walked toward the Tower of Trials. At this moment, Morraz caught up. President, please bring me into the trial tower, Morraz said with a red face. What? Bring you into the Tower of Trials? Chen Zhao stared at Morraz in shock. You can bring that too. It's not like you don't know the situation in the training tower. But this is very unfair to me. Patya and I are both support-type witches. There's almost no place for us in the Tower of Trials. Morraz was a healing witch who barely knew any offensive spells. A person entering the Tower of Trials alone would not last more than 10 seconds. 10 seconds was the time it would take for the monster to reach her. She also wanted to be like the other members and go through the levels one by one. But she could not do it at all, unless she changed her magic system. But that was even more impossible. The others wanted to bring her along, but they could not. Gaia could bring her to the second level, but it was too difficult. Once the two-man team entered the second floor, the twisting giant monster, that was originally a single person, would become an even more difficult earth-shaking monster. Now, Gaia had passed the second level of the Tower of Trials. She was fighting on the third level. But with more Raz, the team would be wiped out on the second level. More Raz also wanted to be useful in the battle, such as healing Gaia. But he could not do it at all. Patya had the same problem. They all wanted to use their abilities in the Tower of Trials. But most of the time, the monsters in the tower would not give them any room to do so. Chen Zhao thought for a moment and said, "The first thing you have to do is not to use your abilities, but to protect yourself. If you can't even protect yourself, don't even think about using your abilities." "President, I recently learned a new spell, Guardian Light. It can reduce the enemy's damage for a certain period of time. Not only can it be used on companions, but it can also be used on oneself." "Is that so? Okay, I'll bring you in," Chen Zhao said. Because he teamed up with more Raz, Chen Zhao came to the first level again. The moment he entered the first level, a screen of light appeared on his body. Chen Zhao was stunned. Turning around, he realized that more Raz was casting a spell on him. "I don't need it on the first level. Wait until I say I want it." Oh, more Raz removed the spell on Chen Zhao. She had seen Chen Zhao fight before and knew that he was very strong. Her boss Offit had been killed by him. But Chen Zhao had not used his full strength back then, so she had a vague idea of his abilities. She just cast a spell on Chen Zhao out of habit. When Gaia had brought her in last time, she had cast Guardian Light on her immediately. She thought that Chen Zhao would do the same. She felt that Chen Zhao was about as strong as Gaia. Moreover, their fighting styles were very similar. They both focused on strengthening. Of course, Gaia could also turn into a fire dragon. Just then the monsters appeared. Chen Zhao charged at the monsters. More Raz looked at Chen Zhao's figure. Just like when Gaia had brought her in last time, Chen Zhao had actively faced the monsters. The difference was that Chen Zhao did not ask for Guardian Light. Chen Zhao fought the monsters with his bare hands. Gaia, on the other hand, used a flaming sword. Chen Zhao was attacked even more times. More Raz made a comparison in her mind. The monsters' attacks were so strong. Would Chen Zhao really be fine? After all, when the monsters attacked her, they would either kill or heavily injure her instantly. But Chen Zhao was actually fine after being attacked so many times. It seemed that the difference between Chen Zhao and Gaia was that Gaia's attacks were higher, while Chen Zhao's defenses were higher. Soon, Chen Zhao had killed 100 monsters. Both received a notification that they had passed. D+. More Raz looked at Chen Zhao. This result was much worse than when Gaia had brought her in last time. She wondered how Chen Zhao was doing. "President, do you need some treatment first?" "No." Chen Zhao shook his head. "I'm not injured." Chapter 1470. "You go in first," Chen Zhao said. "I'll follow. Cast a spell on yourself on the second floor. Just don't get killed instantly." Moraz nodded. She'd been to the second floor of the two-person team before. That feeling was indescribable. If a single person entered the second floor of the Tower of Trials, they would be giant twisted monsters. If two people entered, they would be Earthshakers. Actually, Earthshakers' attacks were similar to giant twisted monsters. However, the most annoying thing about Earthshakers was that wherever they stood, the ground would shake. Everything within a 10-meter radius would be like an earthquake. Chen Zhao wanted more Raz to enter the second floor first to give her time to prepare. There would be a few seconds between the monsters appearing and attacking. If Chen Zhao went first, more Raz would have 2 or 3 seconds less to prepare. This was a big problem for more Raz. More Raz entered the second floor first. Perhaps it was because of his battle instincts, but more Raz looked around first. Then Chen Zhao appeared. He glanced at more Raz. "Hurry and cast a spell on yourself. Don't wait for those monsters to appear." "Oh, got it. President, do you need it?" "No. You just have to maintain the spell on yourself." Just then the Earthshakers appeared in the distance. More Raz remembered clearly that Gaia couldn't put up any resistance against them last time. Chen Zhao watched as the Earthshakers approached. It wasn't his first time facing one. Last time, he'd encountered one when he'd brought Harry's to the 4th floor. Chen Zhao found it strange that Gaia would fail in the two-person team on the second floor with her current strength. Gaia could transform into a fire dragon and fly in the air to attack. The Earthshakers were weak at aerial attacks. Apart from throwing stones, they didn't seem to have any other attack methods. If Gaia turned into a fire dragon, she could kill the Earthshakers by spitting saliva. That was the normal scenario. Chen Zhao didn't know that Gaia had been very confident. She'd been caught off guard, which was why she'd failed on the second floor. When the horde of Earthshakers charged over, Chen Zhao had already charged over. The best way to deal with Earthshakers was to air attack. Chen Zhao didn't need to fly too high. As long as he was more than 1 meter above the ground and avoided the earthquake, the battle would be very easy. Behind him, more Raz had already fallen to the ground due to the earthquake. Fortunately, this kind of earthquake was not fatal. As long as Chen Zhao blocked the Earthshaker's attack, a mere earthquake wouldn't kill more Raz. But it was not good either. More Raz could not even stand up. The ground kept shaking, making her feel nauseous. After Chen Zhao killed 100, the other Earthshakers retreated, and the earthquake stopped. Then more Raz started vomiting. This feeling was too painful. The third floor is a 2-person team. The monster is a wyvern. You have to be careful. I might miss the monster. The monsters on the first and second floor were one-sided attacks. As long as one direction was blocked, the monster would not be able to attack more Raz. However, the monster on the third floor was a wyvern. Chen Zhao couldn't stop all the wyverns in the sky. Moreover, if he intercepted all of them, then it would be meaningless for more Raz to come in with him. For now, Chen Zhao didn't need her to be independent. However, Chen Zhao hoped that she could protect herself. It might not be of much help on the battlefield, but it should at least be able to protect him. After entering the third floor, more Raz's expression became even more serious. Soon, more Raz saw the densely packed wyverns in the sky. The scene was even more shocking than the monster army on the ground. Chen Zhao shot into the sky like an arrow. Instantly, a few wyverns fell to the ground. Just then a wyvern charged at more Raz. More Raz immediately cast a guardian light on herself. The wyvern's claws slammed onto more Raz's body. In that instant, the light of protection on more Raz dimmed a little, and he staggered a few steps. More Raz hurriedly cast another guardian light. The wyvern spat out a mouthful of acid. More Raz did not dodge and felt pain in her thigh. The acid had corroded her thigh and turned it into a bloody mess. Purification, quick recovery, injury suppression. 3 spells were quickly cast on her. Guardian Light was very effective against both physical and magical attacks. However, it was much less effective against this kind of liquid attack. Although she'd already cast 3 spells, more Raz still felt intense pain in her thigh. However, more Raz did not want to give up just like that. The wyvern wanted to continue attacking more Raz. But suddenly, a sword flashed. The wyvern landed. Seeing that Chen Zhao was surrounded, more Raz immediately cast a guardian light on him. However, the guardian light did not even last for a second before it was broken. Helpless, more Raz could only cast another guardian light on Chen Zhao. The result was the same. It was broken instantly again. Just as more Raz was about to cast a third guardian light, Chen Zhao's voice sounded. Save the magic for yourself. I don't need it. Chen Zhao did not pass immediately, because he wanted more Raz to train his self-protection abilities. If he relied on himself to pass, it would be meaningless for more Raz. At this moment another wyvern flew over. The wyvern crashed into more Raz. More Raz was sent flying. The impact had exceeded the upper limit of the guardian light. Chen Zhao glanced at more Raz. He was hesitant about whether to save more Raz or not. Actually, Chen Zhao had purposely let all the wyverns he'd missed out on. However, more Raz clearly did not plan to give up. More Raz charged toward the group of wyverns. Another wyvern was released. More Raz was pincered from the front and back. Just as the 2 wyverns were about to grab him, more Raz rolled to the side. Although his movements were rather clumsy, he managed to avoid the attacks of the 2 wyverns in a thrilling manner. The 2 wyverns crashed into each other. They did not die directly, but they were heavily injured. More Raz did not know where he got his courage from. He grabbed a rock and charged at one of the wyverns, smashing it hard on the wyvern's head. Chapter 1471. More Raz wasn't strong, but she grabbed a rock and smashed it hard. Soon, half of the wyvern's head was smashed into a bloody mess. It wasn't dead yet, but it was already gasping for air. The other wyvern also recovered. It was about to attack more Raz, but Chen Zhao had already acted. Chen Zhao was somewhat surprised. He didn't think that more Raz could defeat a wyvern alone. This way of winning was quite a trick. If he had to do it again, more Raz might not be able to do it. But no matter what, more Raz was a support-type witch. It was already a very impressive challenge for her to kill a wyvern with her own abilities. More Raz wiped the blood off her face and looked up at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao hovered in the air. Looking at more Raz, he gave her a thumbs up. Amazing. If it was someone else, Chen Zhao definitely wouldn't praise them. Wyverns weren't very strong. At least for most people in the association. They could easily defeat 1 or 2 wyverns. But more Raz was different. She was a support-type witch. She had almost no attack power, but she still killed a wyvern. So she deserved Chen Zhao's thumbs up. Behind! More Raz saw a wyvern charge toward Chen Zhao's back. Chen Zhao casually punched behind him, and the wyvern's head was smashed. More Raz looked at Chen Zhao. It was too easy, even though it was the 3rd level, even though it was a 2-person monster. But Chen Zhao still crushed it easily. She didn't see that Chen Zhao was struggling at all. It had to be known that apart from Chen Zhao, only Gaia could reach the 3rd level. Also, with Chen Zhao's help, Helith reached the 4th level. The others hadn't experienced the 3rd level at all. Soon, Chen Zhao killed another 100 wyverns and received the information that he had cleared the stage. But the result was still not good. Chen Zhao basically didn't dodge the wyvern's attacks. The more times he was attacked, the longer it took to clear the level, and the worse his result would be. On the 4th floor, the 2-person team is the Thunderbird. You don't know when a small lightning bolt will fall on your head. I can't help you with this problem, so you have to rely on yourself. If you can't get through it, you'll be killed instantly. Moraz said. Then I'll cast 3 guardian lights first. Do you need them? I don't need it. I have a very high resistance to lightning. The Thunderbirds on the 4th floor are no threat to me. Alright. Moraz said helplessly. He didn't even have a chance to cast Guardian Light on Chen Zhao in the first 4 levels. He didn't even know why he was here. But this also proved Chen Zhao's strength. From the looks of it, his president was not just a little stronger than Gaia. Moraz immediately cast 3 layers of Guardian Light on himself. Then, the 2 of them entered the 4th floor. Not long after, Moraz heard a sharp sound from afar, accompanied by bolts of lightning. When they were more than 10 meters away, a bolt of lightning descended from the sky and landed on Moraz's head. In an instant, a layer of Guardian Light disappeared. Although Moraz had been paying special attention, the Thunderbird's long-range and traceless attack still caught her off guard. Moraz immediately cast another layer of Guardian Light on himself. Chen Zhao also went up. At the same time, he couldn't help but ask, since this Guardian Light can be layered, why don't you cast a few more layers? At most, I can only use 3 layers of Guardian Light. Every additional layer will double the mana consumption. The second Guardian Light will require me to use twice the amount of mana, and the third will require me to use 4 times the amount of mana. If it's a single Guardian Light, can you cast it continuously? If it's a single Guardian Light, I can cast it continuously for 10 minutes. If it's intermittent, I can cast it for a long time, Moraz said. Boom boom. Just then, 2 more bolts of lightning landed on Moraz's head. After the 2 Guardian Lights were destroyed, Moraz immediately cast 2 more Guardian Lights on himself. Chen Zhao evaluated inwardly. This meant that Moraz's mana recovery speed should be quite fast. He must have mastered a special recovery method. Nevertheless, Moraz's Guardian Light spell was quite effective. How's the Guardian Light's defense? Chen Zhao asked as he fought the Thunderbird. Most of the Thunderbird's attacks landed on Chen Zhao. However, a few stray bullets would occasionally hit Moraz's head. It's good against physical and magical attacks, but it's very weak against liquid-type attacks. Curse attacks are completely ineffective. What about other attacks? It has a certain heat insulation effect. The change in air pressure will disintegrate the Guardian Light's defense. If it was an invasion like Kance Mosa's last time, If Chen Zhao didn't suppress Kansmosa, another Moraz would greatly affect the outcome of the battle. It could even be said that Moraz's influence on the battlefield was no less than that of strong people like Gaia, Halys, and Norma. Perhaps Chen Zhao had underestimated support-type witches in the past. It wasn't just Moraz. Perhaps Pattaya also had potential to be unearthed. He should try to bring Pattaya with him to various missions. Compared to the wyverns on the 3rd level, the Thunderbird on the 4th level posed no threat to Chen Zhao at all. Not only did the Thunderbird's lightning attack not harm Chen Zhao, but it also replenished his mana. Moreover, the Thunderbird's physical attack was even weaker than the Earthshaker on the 2nd level. Chen Zhao didn't use any mana, so the Thunderbird couldn't do anything. If Chen Zhao hadn't purposely stalled for time, he would have killed 100 already. However, Chen Zhao also realized that this level of attack wasn't much of a challenge to Moraz. He wanted to see if there was anything on the 5th level that could make Moraz more challenging. Soon, Chen Zhao met the requirement to pass the 4th level. He got an F, which was extremely difficult. However, Chen Zhao didn't know what kind of monsters were on the 5th level. Last time, he'd only brought Halys to the 4th level before she'd been killed by lightning. Be careful on the 5th level, Chen Zhao reminded. I don't know what it's like on the 5th level. I've never done a 5th level duo before. I understand. I'll be careful. Chapter 1472. On the 5th level, there were 3-headed dragons, mixed blood dragons. Strangely, the more heads other species had, the stronger they were. However, it was the opposite for dragons. The more heads they had, the weaker they were. For example, Mikados and the 3-headed dragon he had encountered before. However, Chen Zhao didn't know what monsters they would encounter if they entered the 5th level. When Chen Zhao and Moraz entered the 5th level, there were no monsters in the distance. Chen Zhao remembered that the 3-headed dragon had emerged from the cracked ground. Would the monster this time also come out from underground? Be careful. The attack might come from underground, Chen Zhao warned. Yes, President. Apart from Chen Zhao, no one else had come to the 5th level before. Moraz was excited and terrified at the same time. She didn't know what they would face next, or which level Chen Zhao would take her to. Suddenly, a hand burst out of the ground and grabbed Moraz's ankle. Moraz jumped in fright. The 3 layers of guardian light on her body were instantly pierced. The owner of the hand was too strong. He crushed Moraz's ankle directly. Ah! Moraz screamed. Thankfully, Chen Zhao acted in time and cut off the hand that had popped out of the ground. Just then, wobbling corpses started emerging from the ground. These corpses were slightly taller than humans, and each of them was dragging a black greatsword. Their heads were tilted, their faces expressionless. There was a strong corpse aura on their bodies, but they weren't rotten like zombies. Death Warriors, that was their name. In the Tower of Trials, all monsters had names, and the trial takers could see them. Moraz quickly cast healing spells on herself, suppressing her injuries and recovery light. However, because Moraz's ankle bone had been completely crushed, the low-level recovery light wasn't very effective. The Death Warriors started attacking the two. The air suddenly froze. 3 Death Warriors had already charged toward Chen Zhao and Moraz. So fast, Moraz couldn't even see the Death Warriors' movements with his naked eyes. The 3 black swords were already slashing toward their heads. Chen Zhao was even faster. He swung the stone sword in a circle and knocked the 3 Death Warriors away. How are you? It's affecting my movement a bit, but I can still hold on, Moraz said. Good. Chen Zhao nodded. The speed of these Death Warriors was quite fast, and they were quite strong. Although their bodies were dozens of times weaker than the 3-headed dragon, their lethality was far above that of the 3-headed dragon. I may not be able to protect you completely, but the first thing you need to do is to protect yourself. I understand. At this moment, the Death Warrior launched another attack. The attack this time was even fiercer, and there were even more people attacking at the same time. Although they had no consciousness, they knew how to fight. Some were horizontal slashes, some were vertical slashes, and some were diagonal slashes. Chen Zhao reached out and grabbed Moraz's collar. Without caring whether she was willing or not, his other hand had already blocked the sword for Moraz. Raz's hands suddenly shot out golden light. Light barrier. A thin light wall appeared in front of Raz. However, the light barrier did not seem to have any blocking function, and the Death Warrior easily passed through it. Just as Chen Zhao was confused, the Death Warrior suddenly slowed down. Hey, this spell's pretty good. Chen Zhao killed 2 Death Warriors in passing. It's only effective against undead creatures, Raz said. Raz said, the light barrier will attach a layer of holy light to the bodies of undead creatures it comes into contact with, thus affecting their bodily functions. Even so, it's still a pretty good spell. However, the light barrier could not last for long. After a few Death Warriors touched the holy light, the light barrier disappeared. Chen Zhao tried his best to protect Raz, but Raz did not just stand there. She remembered Chen Zhao's words. Protect yourself first, before you can protect others. These Death Warriors were still a limited threat to Chen Zhao, but they were a huge threat to Raz. Their speed, strength, and battle techniques all made it difficult for Raz to survive. Chen Zhao had an idea. In a chaotic battle, having Agars and Raz work together seemed like a good combination. They could stand guard at the back and protect Raz at the same time. However, Chen Zhao still wanted to try Patya. Patya was also a founding member. Patya's war dance was also very effective, but it was not enough. Patya's war dance was still limited and too simple. Chen Zhao hoped that Patya could be like Raz. She had her own specialty and more diverse spells. Raz's battle awareness was not bad. Even though she was only a support-type witch, she could still survive tenaciously, as long as Chen Zhao did not collapse. Seeing that Chen Zhao seemed to be in a tough battle, Raz could not help but ask, President, do you need Holy Light Glory? Definitely not. I can only use this spell when I really need it. Chen Zhao wanted to know Raz's ultimate move, Holy Light Glory. It could recover everyone's magic power, but this move could only be used once a year. This was the Tower of Trials. It was too wasteful to use Holy Light Glory here. If these Death Warriors were facing members of the supernatural organization, and Chen Zhao was not present, Chen Zhao suspected that the organization would be wiped out. This was really possible. These lone Death Warriors were already about as strong as Gaia. Their strength, speed, and techniques were all very strong. Chen Zhao had relied on his absolute strength to suppress them, which was why he could kill them. At this moment, Chen Zhao suddenly felt that the underground treasure hunt was really necessary. Chen Zhao did not know if he would encounter a group of powerful enemies like the Death Warriors in the future. However, Chen Zhao felt threatened by the Death Warriors. Just then, the stone sword in Chen Zhao's hand shattered. Chen Zhao still had 6,999 stone swords, but he still planned to change his weapons. Chen Zhao took out the black trident. The black trident was much more powerful than the stone sword. Chen Zhao looked around. A dozen Death Warriors were sent flying at the same time. Raz's eyes hardened. She did not expect Chen Zhao to be hiding more power. With the black trident in his hand, Chen Zhao's aura changed too. With the black trident, he could destroy the Death Warriors with just the weight and inertia of the trident without using the power of water. Chapter 1473. Chen Zhao wasn't willing to take out the black trident. Taking it out would mean the end of the war. The Death Warriors were indeed powerful, but facing absolute power, they seemed insignificant. This also lost the purpose of training Raz. Even Raz could feel that the situation had changed completely after Chen Zhao took out the black trident. These Death Warriors would basically die if they touched the black trident. But Chen Zhao was more excited about the 6th floor's guardian boss. The last time Chen Zhao was alone, he'd faced an abyss demon. Now, there was an abyss demon's corpse on the 3rd floor of the association's basement. But the demon's corpse now belonged to Helis. Chen Zhao had promised Helis to give the demon's corpse to her. Helis wanted to control the demon's corpse and use it as her puppet to fight for her. However, the abyss demon was far more powerful than Helis when it was alive. So even after more than half a year, Helis still couldn't control the demon's corpse. If Helis could completely control the corpse of the abyssal demon and turn it into her undead puppet, her strength would definitely increase exponentially. She would surpass Gaia and become the strongest person in the association after Chen Zhao. Of course, the puppet wouldn't have its full power when it was alive, but it would definitely have 80%. Chen Zhao promised to give the demon's corpse to Helis and let her turn it into a puppet. However, Chen Zhao had another request: absolute control. The abyss demon was too powerful. If Helis could only barely control it, it might go out of control. Once the puppet went out of control, it would cause great damage or even death. Chen Zhao didn't want to see this. That was why he made this request. If Helis' puppet went out of control, Chen Zhao would destroy it himself. The 6th floor has a guardian boss. There aren't many, but they're shockingly powerful. I don't know what monsters we'll encounter on the 6th floor, so you don't have to participate. Stay as far away as you can. Don't think that you have to participate. There's no need. If you insist on participating in a battle that's beyond your abilities, you'll die, Chen Zhao said. Morez wasn't convinced, but he still had to listen to Chen Zhao's orders. When the two entered the 6th floor, there was a huge abyss before them. Looking at the huge abyss, Chen Zhao was confused. Did it climb out of the abyss again? At this moment, a huge arm reached out from the abyss, grabbing onto the edge of the abyss. Morez almost fell to the ground in fear when he saw the huge arm. Now she understood what he meant. This was indeed not a battle she could participate in. Such a huge monster. As long as she was lightly touched, she would be out of the game. She had never been to the lowest basement of the headquarters because she was a captive. She hadn't been fully recognized by the other members yet, so the other members were still a little wary of her. After all, they were enemies in the past, and they had never worked together before. How could there be trust between them? Chen Zhao was no stranger to this arm, because it was the arm of the abyss demon. However, now that the duo had joined, was there no change at all? Not long after, the abyssal demons climbed up. But at this time, another abyssal fiend arm stretched out. 2 of them? No, a third abyssal demon soon crawled out. 3 abyss demons. Chen Zhao understood. This meant that it was 3 times more difficult for a duo than for a single person. After the 3 abyssal demons gathered, the battle officially began. 6 beams of demonic light shot out from their eyes and focused on Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao didn't want to take the beams head-on. 6 beams of light. Chen Zhao's body flashed, and he circled behind the middle abyssal demon. The black trident in his hand swept at the back of the abyssal demon's neck, cutting off a chunk of flesh. The first abyssal demon was killed instantly. Its huge body fell to the ground. Only half of its neck was left. For Chen Zhao, whether it was 1 or 3 abyssal demons, they were all in the past. Chen Zhao wouldn't stay where he was. Chen Zhao had fought against abyssal demons countless times. Previously, he'd always used them to test his moves. Because in reality, Chen Zhao had an enemy, an abyssal demon. But Chen Zhao killed it later. So, Chen Zhao knew the various attack methods, abilities, and spells of the abyssal demons like the back of his hand. Then Chen Zhao attacked the second one. It was another instant kill. Then the third one. The entire process only took 3 minutes from start to finish. Then Morez, who was hiding in the distance, received the pass information. The pass information was 3S. Compared to the previous clear results, it was a completely different concept. Previously, he'd gotten F, E, and D scores. He didn't even get a C. But this time, Chen Zhao was decisive. In 3 short minutes, he'd killed the suspense. Could it be that this was his true strength? Morez stared at Chen Zhao in disbelief. Only now did Chen Zhao make her feel like she was suffocating. Morez rarely came to the Tower of Trials, but she knew that Gaia, the strongest in the association, had only reached the 3rd level. Moreover, it was a solo level. But Chen Zhao carried her, and almost didn't rely on her abilities to reach the 6th level. She didn't know how to describe Chen Zhao's terrifying combat ability anymore. Let's go to the 7th level, Chen Zhao said. President, which level can you take me to? I don't know. If I'm alone, I'm currently on the 9th level. I don't know which level I can take you to. I want to see too. Of course, if he wanted to continue, he had to protect Morez first. The attacks of the monsters behind would also increase. Morez's role was negligible. It could even be said that he had no effect at all. But Chen Zhao wanted to know what kind of monsters he would face later, and how much of a challenge it would be. The monsters on the 7th level were lava giants. Chen Zhao's first weapon, the bronze sword, had been destroyed in the fight against the lava giants. Chen Zhao still kept the bronze sword's broken sword. After all, it was a very memorable weapon. He didn't know what kind of monsters they would face on the 7th level, but he was sure that they would be stronger than the lava giants. Chen Zhao turned around and glanced at more Raz. Ready. Chapter 1474. Chen Zhao and more Raz entered the 7th floor at the same time. Before them was a huge crater. Last time, a large number of lava giants had charged out from this crater. This time, it wasn't the lava giants, but the immortal birds. Yes, they were the immortal birds that Chen Zhao had encountered underground. However, they were different from the immortal bird that had half a territory. These immortal birds hadn't reached the clear sky realm yet. Their speed and strength were much higher than the death warriors on the 5th floor. They could also breathe fire. Most importantly, they were hard to kill. Chen Zhao's black trident shattered the immortal birds, turning them into meat paste. But the next moment they reformed. Chen Zhao had to kill them a few times each time, before they would truly die. This also increased the difficulty and intensity. This time, he didn't have to kill 100 but 1,000. Chen Zhao felt the difficulty suddenly increase. After fighting for a long time, Chen Zhao only killed a few. There were simply too many immortal birds around him. After killing them once and circling around, he couldn't recognize them anymore. He couldn't continue like this. He would either die of exhaustion or fight for too long. Moreover, Chen Zhao wanted to go to the 8th floor. If this continued, the immortal birds might break through Chen Zhao's defense line and attack more Raz. More Raz definitely couldn't resist the immortal birds' attacks. By now, more Raz could also feel Chen Zhao's pressure. It seemed that this was Chen Zhao's limit. Nevertheless, more Raz was already very satisfied to see the 7th floor. Originally, more Raz had thought that it would be enough after the 2nd floor. She had never thought that Chen Zhao could bring her to the 7th floor. At the same time, she had witnessed a true battle between monsters. That's right. In more Raz's eyes, Chen Zhao was an absolute monster. However, Chen Zhao clearly didn't plan to give up just like that. The dark lava under Chen Zhao's feet instantly spread out. More Raz had never seen Chen Zhao do this. His jaw dropped, he stared at Chen Zhao in shock. After the dark lava reached a diameter of more than 30 meters, it pulled upwards like a piece of cloth. A dozen immortal birds were wrapped inside. At the edge of the dark lava, Chen Zhao could see the immortal birds trying to break through. However, the dark magma was viscous, and it was far tougher than it looked. The phoenix inside quickly lost its resistance. The dark magma tightened. Compared to the living undying bird they encountered last time, it was much weaker. These undying birds weren't actually that powerful. Their biggest advantage was that they were hard to kill. It took a few tries to kill them, which increased Chen Zhao's workload. But the dark lava solved this problem perfectly. After Chen Zhao used dark lava, his efficiency increased a lot. Chen Zhao directly used dark lava in the meat grinder mode. Phoenix's ability to rise from the ashes was immediately weakened. More Raz was already dumbfounded by what he saw. However, this was one of the few tough battles that Chen Zhao had. Looking at Chen Zhao's past experiences, there was nothing that he could call a bitter battle. One was the battle in the Amazon rainforest. The other battle was with the black dragon on the 9th floor. Compared to the previous two battles, the difficulty and intensity of this battle were the lowest. After about an hour of fighting, the battle finally ended. There was still residual heat in the air. "President, are we still going to the 8th floor?" Morez asked. "Of course. But I can't help at all," Morez said, troubled. "I want to see what kind of trouble the 8th floor will give me," Chen Zhao said. Chen Zhao felt that Morez would definitely die if he entered the 8th floor. The 8th floor was above the sea. Without any footholds, Chen Zhao could only pull Morez into the air. Otherwise, Morez would have no chance of survival. Chen Zhao also needed to fight. He couldn't keep Morez in the air. The two entered the 8th floor. Chen Zhao grabbed Morez. "President, this is the 8th floor." The two were hundreds of meters in the air. Even at this height, they still couldn't see the end. Chen Zhao was curious about what kind of monster would appear next. At this moment, a multicolored light appeared on the horizon in the distance. What was that? Some creature seemed to have dyed the seawater colorful. The vibrant colors spread to the bottom of the two rainbow-absorbing jellyfish. These jellyfish weren't big compared to the previous monsters. At 4 to 5 meters they seemed weak. They were also very slow. Chen Zhao didn't find any attack power. Were these jellyfish here to be funny? They were much weaker than the chaotic ocean monster on the 8th floor. Chen Zhao didn't find any threat at all. Were they as poisonous as the jellyfish in real life? But he had the glutton bloodline, so he wasn't afraid of poison. The glutton bloodline was the only demon bloodline that wouldn't be poisoned. Chen Zhao glanced at More Raz. Do you want me to let go directly, or lower and let go? Holding More Raz, he clearly couldn't fight. However, regardless of whether he let go directly, or let go after descending, Chen Zhao felt that More Raz had no chance of survival. As long as he fell into the sea, More Raz would be eliminated. Lower. I still want to struggle. After descending to a few meters, Chen Zhao let go of More Raz. At the same time he dove into the sea. As for More Raz's life and death, Chen Zhao couldn't care less. But the moment he dove into the sea, he felt his magic power pour out like a blood hemorrhage. 3 seconds. In just 3 seconds, Chen Zhao's magic power was completely gone. No matter how much magic the small world recovered, it would disappear in an instant. These jellyfish could absorb magic power? That's right, they could absorb magic. After absorbing Chen Zhao's magic power, their bodies started changing. The colorful colors turned inky black, and their tentacles lashed at Chen Zhao like whips. Chen Zhao had to admit that this was a type of hell creature he'd never seen before. Their attacks and fighting methods were also new. Chen Zhao's body was still strong, and he could still fight. However, his mana being absorbed was indeed a huge problem for him. The jellyfish's tentacles swept across Chen Zhao's body, and he immediately felt numb. They also had a paralyzing poison attack, but the numbness disappeared quickly. The glutton bloodline was working. Chapter 1475. Compared to Chen Zhao, who focused on physical attacks and strong defense, the jellyfish were still pitifully weak. Even though the jellyfish could absorb magic power and turn it into physical attacks, its attack power was still pitifully weak. However, they were helpless against an enemy like Chen Zhao, who specialized in physical attacks and defense. If the other people in the association encountered them, they would probably end up in a miserable state. Chen Zhao waved the black trident. Because he had no magic power at all, his stamina was the only thing he could rely on. Moreover, the jellyfish absorbed magic power too quickly. It was so fast that Chen Zhao's small world and deep sea domain couldn't keep up with the jellyfish's absorption. It had to be known that under normal circumstances, even if Chen Zhao used 10,000 spells returned to 1,000 sword control and dark lava for more than 10 hours without stopping, he could still maintain the small world's recovery speed. If he had 0 magic power now, it would only take half an hour for his magic power to fully recover. However, the thousands of jellyfish around him were absorbing magic power much faster than Chen Zhao's recovery speed. Moreover, they didn't absorb it through contact. Instead, they directly absorbed Chen Zhao's magic power through the seawater. Just then, Chen Zhao suddenly realized that More Raz wasn't dead. What happened to her? She wasn't dead? Her magic power wasn't sucked away? And how could she fight against the jellyfish that could attack with physical attacks? Chen Zhao waved the black trident. Fortunately, even though Chen Zhao had no magic power, he could still move in the water. Chen Zhao focused on More Raz to see how she could protect herself. However, after a few glances, Chen Zhao realized something. More Raz had used some kind of spell to make her aura disappear. She could still be seen with the naked eye, but jellyfish didn't have vision. Their only senses were the nerves of touch. Using this method, More Raz managed to avoid the jellyfish's magic absorption. This method might seem useless, but it was actually quite useful. Some opponents just didn't have vision. For example, the crypt demons were light averse. Of course, the crypt demons also had heat detection and scent detection abilities. But not all creatures had these two abilities. So More Raz's spell was pretty good. Actually, Chen Zhao's element countered the jellyfish. The biggest advantage of the rainbow-absorbing jellyfish was that it could turn its opponents into ordinary people. But Chen Zhao wasn't an ordinary person after losing his magic power, so this kind of attack was useless against him. Of course, their vitality was still quite tenacious, although it didn't have the ability to be reborn multiple times like the phoenix. But sometimes, Chen Zhao might not even be able to kill them with one attack. After nearly an hour, he finally received the notification that he had cleared the stage. And this time, the result was unprecedentedly bad. A result that had never appeared before. Previously, it was still possible to calculate the number of attacks, but on this floor, it was basically impossible to calculate the exact number of attacks. Actually, if Chen Zhao had known about the characteristics of the rainbow-absorbing jellyfish, he wouldn't have known about it. As long as he didn't go into the water and used the mouth of gluttony to fire the verbal cannon, he would still have a chance of passing unscathed. But now, he was considering whether to bring more Raz to the 9th floor. One black dragon was already too much for Chen Zhao to handle. Would he be able to handle another level that was 3 times stronger? Chen Zhao wasn't confident. Plus, his magic was still recovering. Starting from 0, it would take at least half an hour for it to recover to full. More Raz's survival was beyond Chen Zhao's expectations. President, do you want to continue? Chen Zhao looked at More Raz. The single person on the 9th floor is a purebred black dragon. Last time I barely beat it. This time, I don't know if I should bring you up. 9th floor. President, I can leave the Tower of Trials. Chen Zhao thought for a long while. But I improved again after last time. I don't think that black dragon is still a problem. I want something more exciting. More Raz admired Chen Zhao now. The indescribable power made her gasp in amazement. At the same time, she thought of how stupid it was to lead them to attack the supernatural organization last time. President, I have a special way to recover magic power. Maybe you can try. Is this your family's inheritance? Chen Zhao asked. If it was usually not allowed to be leaked. Chen Zhao didn't want More Raz to get into trouble because of this. No matter what, she was his subordinate. No, I thought of it myself, More Raz said. More Raz said, when I was with Offit in the past, I was always scolded by him because my magic power couldn't keep up. Later, I kept thinking about how to increase my magic power. However, the time needed to increase my magic power was too long. Chen Zhao nodded. That was true. Even the growth of his own magic power seemed to take a long time compared to the overall situation. Moreover, it was More Raz. Then I thought of a way. Since I can't increase my magic power level in a short time, why not increase my recovery speed? If I can increase my magic power recovery speed, I can last longer in battle and release more spells. That was the logic and everyone knew it. But the key was how many people could do it. How did you do it? More Raz nodded. Mental power. Releasing mental power can attract more spiritual chi, but there's a certain risk. It'll attract some harmful spirits. If they're absorbed, they'll pollute my own magic power. It'll be very troublesome to purify my own magic power. Chen Zhao couldn't release his mental power, even though it was quite strong. His mental power was quite strong, but it required a certain technique to release it. Looks like there's a certain risk in this method, Chen Zhao said. If you're fighting spirit-type enemies, it's best not to use this method to recover magic power. It's too risky. I'll continue to improve, More Raz said. Then keep working hard. I have high hopes for you. Chen Zhao felt that he'd recovered 30% of his magic power. He wanted to go to the 9th floor in his best condition. After all, his destined enemy was on the 9th floor. The handsome guy had once said that he had to be careful at all times when facing his enemy. He was like this to Chen Zhao. It should be the same to the black dragon. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 1476. Chen Zhao and More Raz came to the 9th floor. A familiar aura spread over from the north. But just then, 2 more auras came from the southwest. The 2 auras from the southwest arrived first. A silver dragon and a red dragon landed on the ground. More Raz was so scared that her limbs turned to jelly. The 2 draconic auras made it hard for her to breathe. Chen Zhao gritted his teeth. They were actually two dragons of completely different elements. Like the black dragon, they were both purebred dragons. The black dragon and the fire dragon were both fire elemental. The difference was that the black dragon could use dark elemental magic, while the fire dragon was pure fire. Chen Zhao was more curious about the silver dragon's element. Chen Zhao could only vaguely feel the silver dragon's aura. Because Chen Zhao was also blocked by the draconic aura, he couldn't feel anything else. Just then the black dragon arrived too. Without a front claw, it landed before Chen Zhao. "You again? You're here again." Cruelty and hatred appeared in the black dragon's eyes. Moraz was already sitting on the ground. 3 waves of dragons might came crashing down. Not to mention protecting herself. She couldn't even muster the slightest bit of mana. She was completely suppressed. If Chen Zhao didn't have the protection of the draconic aura, his magic would be suppressed by at least 60%, just like Moraz. Chen Zhao had no chance of winning against the 3 dragons. Fortunately, Chen Zhao had the draconic aura. The draconic aura was ineffective against the same race. However, Chen Zhao was very suspicious about the handsome black dragon. Even though it was only a projection, as an ancestral dragon, it still gave Chen Zhao an unparalleled shock. The handsome young man had never revealed his strength, and neither had Samuel. Thus, the ancestral dragon was undoubtedly the most terrifying existence Chen Zhao had ever seen. Compared to the ancestral dragon's projection, the 3 dragons before him were like 3 earthworms. Of course, Chen Zhao wasn't sure if he could win against 3 earthworms. "Herbella, do you know these 2 humans?" the silver dragon asked curiously. "My front claw was broken because of him," the black dragon said coldly, its tone filled with resentment. Chen Zhao was curious. There wasn't just 1 or 3 dragons on the 9th floor. Perhaps there were many dragons? If he came alone, he would only encounter the black dragon. Then after killing the black dragon would no longer exist? In the future, when others come to the 9th floor, they won't encounter the black dragon anymore? The silver dragon and the fire dragon looked at each other. To be able to break the claws of the black dragon Hybla, he was definitely not weak. "Can you stand up? If you can stand up, then stay away." Moraz had heard from Chen Zhao that there was a black dragon guarding the 9th floor. She had originally thought that it would be the dragon that Gaia had transformed into, but when she faced it head-on, she realized how foolish her thoughts were. The 3-headed dragon in front of him was completely different from the fire dragon that Gaia had transformed into. From their dragon might to their bodies, it was unknown how many times weaker they were. The difference in body length was more than 10 times. The 3 dragons were all more than 100 meters long. Their sky-covering bodies would cause anyone to tremble in fear at first glance. But Moraz had also recovered a little. He pushed himself up with difficulty and moved backwards. Chen Zhao took a deep breath and took out the black trident. All techniques returned to one darkness assimilation. Black and red patterns covered Chen Zhao's body. The 3 dragons didn't look down on Chen Zhao just because he was human. Since Chen Zhao could heavily injure the black dragon, he could also hurt them. Even though it was 1 against 3, they still didn't dare to be careless. In a battle of the same level, anything could happen. The battle was about to start, but the 3 dragons and 1 person were still in a stalemate. Finally, the fire dragon moved first with its mouth. The fire dragon took a deep breath. Its neck bulged like a frog's balloon. Then a terrifying fireball that looked like a small sun shot toward Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao kicked with all his strength. He didn't know how fast he was. When he reached a certain speed, he suddenly felt a wall of air blocking his speed, causing him to pause. But Chen Zhao's strength exploded again and broke through the wall. Instantly, there was a shattering sound in the air. After breaking through the wall, Chen Zhao felt that he was even faster. There was no more obstruction. Is that a wall of air? Is it the so-called sound barrier? Chen Zhao's thoughts spun, but he didn't stop. Before the 3 dragons could react, Chen Zhao had already reached the silver dragon's belly. The black trident enlarged, turning into a huge trident dozens of meters long. Chen Zhao stabbed toward the silver dragon's belly. The silver dragon felt a fatal threat and instinctively used a life-saving technique. Clang! Chen Zhao felt as if the trident had stabbed into an iron block. Ice shards flew everywhere. The silver dragon's entire body turned into ice. It was just like the black dragon's ultimate move, bloodline pressure. It could freeze the enemy instantly. The silver dragon's ultimate move was absolute ice. It could turn its body into solid ice. This was a killing move that Chen Zhao had planned for a long time. He didn't think that it would still fail. But Chen Zhao reacted very quickly. He didn't regret it. Instead, he changed from stabbing to sweeping. The huge black trident swept across the silver dragon's front claw. It didn't break the claw, but it made the silver dragon's huge body lie on the ground. Freeze! The black dragon also attacked. Chen Zhao's body froze instantly. Then, a dragon tail covered in scorching flames swept across. It smashed Chen Zhao into the air. Chen Zhao stabilized his body that was flying backward. The silver dragon also stood up. As expected, fighting 1 against 3 was too much pressure, Chen Zhao thought. But he still wanted to try. After all, dark assimilation was a new move that he'd developed. It could be considered as strengthening the foundation of all returns to 1. Now that the black dragon and silver dragon had used their ultimate moves, what would the fire dragon do? Chen Zhao looked at the fire dragon. Sensing Chen Zhao's gaze, the fire dragon immediately realized that Chen Zhao's next attack would definitely be directed at him. Without saying anything else, Chen Zhao charged toward the fire dragon. The acceleration this time was even smoother than the first time he broke through the air wall. Speed was Chen Zhao's greatest advantage. Even the 3 dragons couldn't do anything to him. The black dragon kept staring at Chen Zhao. Even he couldn't catch Chen Zhao's figure. Fortunately, his efforts didn't go to waste. He caught it. Freeze! Instantly, the black dragon's bloodline pressure pressed down on Chen Zhao again. Chen Zhao withstood it immediately. But just then, his lips curled into a smile. His target wasn't the fire dragon, but the black dragon. He knew that every time the black dragon used bloodline pressure, it would enter a temporary weakness. The weakness was very short, but it was enough for Chen Zhao. Chapter 1477. The 3 dragons were caught off guard by Chen Zhao's sudden change of direction. Suddenly, a spark bloomed before Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao passed through the spark without hesitation, but another explosion followed, even more intense than before. Chen Zhao didn't turn around, but he could feel that it was the fire dragon's attack. The fire dragon's eyes glowed red. Wherever he looked, there would be an explosion. This was the fire dragon's bloodline, Red Lotus Fire. This was also his trump card. It wasn't like the black dragon's control move, or the silver dragon's ability to turn itself into ice. It attacked directly. As long as it was within a certain range, it could cause an explosion with a thought. However, the fire dragon realized that the explosion didn't seem to hurt Chen Zhao at all. By then, Chen Zhao was already close to the black dragon. Chen Zhao was too fast. If he released a big one now, it would affect the black dragon. Although the black dragon was also a fire elemental like him, the black dragon was a dual elemental of darkness and fire. He wasn't absolutely immune to fire. His own explosion would hurt him. While the fire dragon was hesitating, Chen Zhao's black trident had already pierced into the black dragon's lower jaw. The entire process took less than half a second. The black dragon finally recovered from its weakness. But Chen Zhao was one step ahead. The black trident's huge power pierced through the black dragon's lower jaw. Grow! In the blink of an eye, the black trident was poured into the dark magma, and it expanded exponentially. Ah! Blood spurted out from the black dragon's lower jaw and splashed onto Chen Zhao. The black dragon raised his head with difficulty and turned into a human. He finally broke free from the black trident. Just a little bit slower, just a little bit more. The enlarged black trident had almost exploded his head. However, this was also within Chen Zhao's expectations. Chen Zhao didn't even pause for a second. He swung the black trident in a circle and swept it across the black dragon's body. Both attacks had heavily injured the black dragon. Fortunately, it was the black dragon. If it were someone else, they would have been smashed into pieces. The black dragon crashed onto the ground, and Chen Zhao landed beside it. He picked up the dying black dragon. Just then the undead key appeared again. This was the second time the undead key had worked. Both times, it had worked on the black dragon. The black dragon's body had already collapsed. Even a body as strong as a dragon's could not withstand such a fatal injury. His soul was also being torn apart, but not because of death, but because of the undead key. The undead key was currently disintegrating the black dragon's soul. Chen Zhao was confused. Last time, he'd been stained by the black dragon's blood and received dragon might. But this time, the undead key appeared again. It disintegrated and absorbed the dragon's soul. But Chen Zhao didn't notice any changes. His strength did not increase, and the small world did not change. Suddenly, Chen Zhao felt some new knowledge appear in his mind. This was the black dragon's knowledge? However, this knowledge wasn't very useful to him. He could impart it to Gaia. Gaia had never been able to practice magic, but dragon magic should be no problem for her. Abitos didn't need to. He didn't need to learn from Chen Zhao. His mother was stronger than anyone else, and his bloodline was much purer than Gaia's. Chen Zhao glanced at the dead black dragon. Last time, when the black dragon left behind its severed arm, it still retained its human form. But this time, as soon as the black dragon died, his body reverted to that of a dragon. Chen Zhao looked at the huge black dragon's corpse and put it away. It should taste good. If he extracted the blood, Gaia could also purify it from the black dragon's blood. Chen Zhao turned to the fire dragon and silver dragon. The fire dragon and silver dragon didn't flee because of the black dragon's death. Moraz was shocked by Chen Zhao's dragon-slaying action. Right now, Chen Zhao was covered in blood. He didn't know if it was his or the black dragon's. The atmosphere was suffocating. Finally, Chen Zhao and the two dragons moved. The fire dragon turned into a ball of fire, while the silver dragon turned into solid ice. They charged at Chen Zhao. Instead of retreating, Chen Zhao charged headfirst. He collided with the silver dragon first. As expected, he was sent flying by the silver dragon. Before Chen Zhao could land, a terrifying force attacked him from behind. The fire dragon's attack was red lotus fire. Unlike the previous probing attacks, this explosion could be said to be earth-shattering. Chen Zhao was swallowed by the explosion in an instant. When the smoke dissipated, Chen Zhao stood on the ground. His right arm was covered in blood and burn marks. He was injured. Even with spell return and dark assimilation, he was still injured. Chen Zhao hadn't been injured in battle for more than a year. The fire dragon's attack was too terrifying. It was even scarier than a missile. Moraz covered his mouth and stared at Chen Zhao in shock. Chen Zhao didn't die from such a terrifying impact. But then, Chen Zhao's injuries started recovering rapidly. The burnt skin was falling off, and the wound was healing. Chen Zhao had gone through shock explosion training in the river map. Without that training, Chen Zhao would probably be lying on the ground now. After using this super powerful red lotus fire, the fire dragon was much weaker. His recovery speed was clearly slower than the black dragon's. Chen Zhao couldn't let him recover. If he used it a second time, he'd be in danger. Dark lava covered Chen Zhao's wound again. Chen Zhao turned into a stream of light and shot toward the fire dragon. This time, he would go all out. His magic power flowed rapidly. Spell return, dark assimilation, and supersonic speed finally made Chen Zhao's magic power surpass his recovery speed. The fire dragon wasn't slow, but it was still half as fast as Chen Zhao. Suddenly, dozens of red lotus fire of various sizes exploded before Chen Zhao. The explosion blocked Chen Zhao's path, but it also blocked the fire dragon's vision. The fire dragon lost sight of Chen Zhao. Suddenly, a figure charged out of the endless flames without any warning. Covered in flames, the figure swung down with the black trident. Bang! The black trident smashed into the fire dragon's neck. With a crack, the fire dragon fell to the ground. But Chen Zhao could feel that the attack didn't break the dragon's neck. Furious, the fire dragon tried to climb up again. Chen Zhao slammed the fire dragon into the ground again with another powerful strike. Just as Chen Zhao was about to hit for the third time, the silver dragon's support arrived. A huge icicle shot toward Chen Zhao. Feeling a chill on his back, Chen Zhao's heart jumped. The moment the icicle shot over, he turned around and swung the black trident down, accurately hitting the top of the icicle. The icicle immediately changed direction and fell down. Poof! The icicle stabbed into the fire dragon's back. The fire dragon completely lost its ability to resist. No one expected the most fatal attack to come from his comrade. Chapter 1478. This time, the fire dragon couldn't get up again. The silver dragon couldn't stay calm now either. He'd wanted to help the fire dragon. Unexpectedly, Chen Zhao schemed against him and gave the fire dragon a fatal blow. Chen Zhao glanced at the fire dragon. The undead key didn't appear this time. It seemed that the fire dragon wasn't his destined enemy. Chen Zhao looked at the silver dragon, and the dragon looked back at him. Even though the number of enemies had decreased from 3 to 1, Chen Zhao still didn't dare to be careless. Chen Zhao wasn't confident in defeating any of the 3 dragons. Moreover, he only had half of his magic power left. The silver dragon seemed to realize that Chen Zhao was weak. It didn't run or dodge. Instead, it attacked Chen Zhao directly. Suddenly, countless icicles appeared around Chen Zhao. They all charged at him, completely surrounding him. Chen Zhao swung his black trident in a circle and shattered countless ice spikes, but more still came. These ice spikes were even more powerful than the most powerful sniper rifle. It instantly pierced through Chen Zhao's body and into his body. Chen Zhao gritted his teeth and pulled out the bloody ice spikes. Just then the ice spikes attacked again. This time, Chen Zhao wouldn't just stand there like an idiot. The direction of the ice spikes was fixed and couldn't be tracked. Chen Zhao quickly changed his position and charged at the silver dragon around the corner. Clang! Chen Zhao hit the silver dragon with his full strength again. But apart from ice shards flying everywhere, it didn't do any actual damage to the silver dragon. The damage on the silver dragon healed under the effect of the cold air. Chen Zhao had to admit that the silver dragon's terrifying defense made him feel helpless. Chen Zhao's full-strength attack could even sink a warship. But to the silver dragon, it didn't do any damage. Moreover, the recoil made his arms numb. How troublesome! Even a force of 10,000 tons couldn't hurt the silver dragon. The silver dragon's frozen body was the one with the highest defense among all the enemies Chen Zhao had encountered. No other. If there was a fire attack, it should be able to do actual damage to the silver dragon. But most of Chen Zhao's attacks were physical. That was troublesome. Chen Zhao kept attacking in a roundabout way. As long as he stayed in one spot for more than 3 seconds, ice spikes would appear and attack him. Chen Zhao kept hitting the silver dragon. Seeing that it couldn't catch Chen Zhao with its icicles, the silver dragon could only attack him with its limbs, or his frost dragon breath. Chen Zhao had already tried attacking where he thought he was weak. Eyes, mouth, tail, abdomen, back, or wings, even the position of the genitals. Chen Zhao tried to attack anything he could, but the result was disappointing. Right now, Chen Zhao couldn't hurt the silver dragon. The silver dragon couldn't catch him. The 2 sides were in a deadlock. But to Chen Zhao, this wasn't good news. If he couldn't hurt his opponent, then his opponent would have more options to retaliate. Chen Zhao had always used this move against his enemies. He didn't expect that it would be used on him today. It seemed like Chen Zhao had always been the main attacker. But in reality, Chen Zhao was at a disadvantage. Chen Zhao needed to keep attacking. Once his attack stopped, it was time for the silver dragon to retaliate. Was he going to use a killer move? Chen Zhao wasn't willing. Last time, after swallowing Mikados and his army of stillbirth monsters, Chen Zhao's dark lava doubled in size. This also allowed Chen Zhao to learn a new ultimate move. Filling the dark lava into the dark trident was one of them. But this move was an ultimate move, not a killer move. The real killer move needed to use up the dark lava. Every time he used it, he would have one less. For Chen Zhao, the dark lava was very important. He wasn't willing to use it in this battle, but unless Chen Zhao was willing to retreat now, he would have to use a killer move to win. Chen Zhao finally made up his mind. He had to win this battle. Chen Zhao suddenly pushed away, creating a distance of 100 meters. The dark lava gathered in Chen Zhao's hand, turning into a black and red longbow. He pulled the bow into a full moon. An arrow made of dark lava was knocked on the bow. He didn't need to aim. He just needed to capture the silver dragon's aura. 3, 2, 1. The arrow shot through the air. But the moment it left the bow, the arrow suddenly grew bigger, bigger, and bigger. The silver dragon wanted to counterattack, but when it saw the huge arrow flying toward it, it sensed danger. Ice wall. The silver dragon spat out dragon breath, and a huge ice wall appeared before it. But the ice wall couldn't stop the arrow. It instantly pierced a hole. The arrow pierced into the silver dragon's neck in a fraction of a second. At the same time, the cracks on the silver dragon's neck spread out. Roar. The silver dragon roared. Chen Zhao had already charged forward. He swung the black trident and smashed it into the cracked neck. The dragon's roar stopped. The silver dragon's huge head fell to the ground, followed by its huge body. The ice gradually faded, revealing the silver dragon's original body. Level 9 passed. Score D. Chen Zhao exchanged glances with Raz in the distance. Raz couldn't describe her shock right now. In her eyes, this was an epic battle. Compared to this dragon-slaying battle, all the previous battles seemed so insignificant. Whether it was the ambush to kill the black dragon, the borrowed strength to kill the fire dragon, or the desperate battle with the silver dragon, Raz was stunned. Chen Zhao stood where he was and looked at the silver dragon's corpse. This battle had really exhausted him. He'd never been so tired. Fortunately, it was over. Everything was over. Chen Zhao put away the silver dragon's corpse. Let's go. It's time to go out. We can't pass level 10 no matter what. President, can you bring me in next time? Raz's eyes were filled with admiration and anticipation. Sure, I guess. To be honest, this was a battle that made Chen Zhao tired but satisfying. At the same time, it forced Chen Zhao to the extreme and made him realize his weakness. Don't record the progress of level 9, Chen Zhao said. When I'm not here, you should train on level 1. I understand, President. Raz's standards were higher now, but it didn't mean she was stupid. Was she trying to die by recording the progress of level 9? She couldn't use any spells here. She'd be killed instantly. Chen Zhao already planned to bring Pattaya next time. She was a good support and had battle experience. Chapter 1479. When the people in the association saw Chen Zhao come out of the Tower of Trials, they were all curious. They saw Chen Zhao's weak expression. They really wanted to know which level Chen Zhao had taken Raz to. What kind of battle had Chen Zhao gone through to become so weak? It must be known that this was the first time they'd seen Chen Zhao so weak since they knew him. President, you're hurt? West saw the holes in Chen Zhao's clothes. They'd clearly been pierced by some sharp object. There were no wounds inside. With Chen Zhao's self-healing abilities, this wasn't strange. But it didn't mean that he'd completely recovered. Chen Zhao's self-healing abilities could only heal on the surface. In reality, the wounds were still there. West, move everything out of the warehouse. President, do you have something big to put in? Chen Zhao nodded. Big, very big. Then I'll arrange the work, West said. It didn't take long for the warehouse to be cleared. Under everyone's curious and expectant gazes, Chen Zhao piled up the 3 dragon corpses and put them into the warehouse. Whoosh! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Now they knew why Chen Zhao was in such a sorry state. Chen Zhao had slain a dragon. The fire dragon's corpse was the most intact. The black dragon's corpse was a bit broken. The silver dragon's corpse was decapitated. He'd killed 3 dragons at once. This wasn't Gaia's hybrid transformation. Gaia's fire dragon form wasn't even 10 meters long. Looking at the 3 dragons in front of him, all of them were more than 100 meters long. It was a completely different concept. Everyone stared at the 3 dragons in astonishment. Harris, do you need them? Chen Zhao turned his head and asked. If you do, I can reserve one for you. Harrell shook her head. I can't do it. No one can control a dragon, not even a dead dragon. Death magic is forbidden magic, and turning a dragon into an undead dragon is the taboo of all taboo. Transforming an abyssal demon is already too much for me to consider transforming other undead creatures. Harris knew that she shouldn't bite off more than she could chew. She didn't care about the 3 dragon corpses at all. President, I want 2 dragon eyeballs, one for fire dragon and one for ice dragon, Jalanash said, her eyes shining. Jalanash's eyes lit up. I feel like I can make a divine weapon with these 2 eyeballs. Guild leader, this silver dragon's skin can be used to make armor that can withstand high temperatures. What about Ruan Faxi? Leave these matters to him. Also, when Gaia comes back, Ask her if she needs dragon blood. Extract all the blood from these 3 dragons and keep it safe. Keep the dragon meat, tendons, bones, and horns well. Everyone was filled with motivation. Norma couldn't help but say, President, I also want a staff made of dragon horn. Guild leader, I want the silver dragon's dragon balls. They can be used to create a magic array that can absorb the surrounding spiritual energy and increase our mana growth rate, Shifeng said. Your request is acceptable. Also, Jalanash, if you want the dragon's eyeball, you can keep it. However, you'll need to pass the 2nd floor of the Tower of Trials first. Otherwise, I doubt you'll be able to keep it if you carry a god artifact around on the streets. Alright. Since Chen Zhao had spoken, Jalanash could only listen to his request. However, the thought of a magic tool made from the eyeballs of 2 dragons as a weapon filled Jalanash with motivation. Dragon corpses were very precious. There were almost no pure-blooded dragons in the world. Even if there were, humans couldn't kill them. Every part of the dragon race was a rare treasure for humans. West, other than the parts that have been confirmed, for the parts that have not been confirmed, everyone will participate in a group discussion and come up with a distribution plan to ensure that every part of the 3-headed dragon is put to good use. If any of you want something, you can bring it up. If there are any duplicates, then we'll discuss it. If we can't discuss it, then we'll have a public evaluation. Also, I was the one who killed the 3-headed dragon. I wanted to improve the association, not cause internal strife, so I don't want to cause irreconcilable conflicts. Do you understand? With Chen Zhao around, there wouldn't be any conflicts. However, if some parts were really needed by many people and couldn't be reconciled, those who didn't get it would inevitably have a knot in their hearts. So, Chen Zhao hoped that West could discuss with the others and come up with a practical plan. That way, the things would be distributed to the people who needed them. Oh, don't let Ruan Faxi stay idle. After all, we're paying him. Also, after plucking out the eyeballs and skin from the silver dragon's head, give me the complete skull. I want to keep it as a collection. Fei Lai had never seen Chen Zhao so tired. When she saw Chen Zhao return, his clothes were all torn. He also looked dispirited. Fei Lai knew that Chen Zhao must have done something big again. Fei Lai, didn't you say that you wanted to make a collection like the mansion at Mirror Lake? Today, I got a nice collection, even though it's only the head. What is it? A dragon's head, Chen Zhao said. Don't tell me you went to slay a dragon today. Yes, a 3-headed dragon. Was it dangerous? No, but it was tiring. It was indeed tiring. The battle had even surpassed Chen Zhao's abilities. But Chen Zhao didn't gain nothing. He felt that he'd become stronger. This was a hardy battle. But after the battle ended and Chen Zhao deactivated all-in-one and dark assimilation, the feeling of exhaustion came. It wasn't enough to make Chen Zhao powerless, but it made him very tired and weak. After returning home, Chen Zhao was even more unwilling to move. Fei Lai went to help him prepare dinner. Chen Zhao picked up his other phone and called the handsome guy. Hey, handsome guy, I killed that old enemy, the compatible enemy. Really? Congratulations. The handsome guy didn't seem surprised. Didn't you say that the compatible enemy would be a great threat to me? As the victor, nothing is a threat, the handsome guy said nonchalantly. How many dragons are there on the 9th level? Above the 9th level, every level is a prison. Those locked up on the 9th level are all descendants of the ancestral dragon. The ancestral dragon is your mount, right? Are you sure it's okay to lock up his descendants in prison? They're all descendants who betrayed the ancestral dragon. They have the blood of the traitor, so you can kill them as long as you kill them all. As long as I kill them all. There are many dragons in there. Chapter 1480. How many dragons are there on the 9th floor? Countless years ago, the ancestral dragon and his son, Herberlin, started a war. Herberlin led his descendants to fight against the ancestral dragon. Can the son beat the father? So, the Herberlin lost, and was destroyed by the ancestral dragon. Most of his descendants were exiled too. The ancestral dragon fought all his descendants alone? How many descendants did he have? Back then, the Herberlin was the largest race in hell apart from the 7 demon kings. There were hundreds of millions of them. The ancestral dragon defeated all of them. Actually, he didn't have to defeat all of them. He just had to defeat his son. Herberlin inherited most of the ancestral dragon's power and bloodline, but he was still the ancestral dragon's descendant. The ancestral dragon completely suppressed Herberlin in terms of bloodline. The other descendants were too weak compared to the ancestral dragon and didn't have the right to participate in the war at all. Although a few powerful grandchildren managed to participate, the result couldn't be changed. The ancestral dragon won, and the Herberlin was completely exiled. The Herberlin on the 9th floor of the Tower of Trials was one of them. So there are no more descendants of the Herberlin in Hell now. Nowadays, most of the dragons in Hell are the descendants of another child of the ancestral Gragon, the Ural dragon. They are also known as the Ural dragons. There are very few pure-blooded Haber dragons left, but the war between the Haber dragons and the ancestral Gragon has nothing to do with the Ural dragons. The Ural dragons have no grudges or conflicts with the ancestral Gragon and the Haber dragons. Therefore, after the war, the Ural dragons became the protectors of the remaining Haber dragons, protecting them from being banished and allowing them to marry their descendants. Therefore, it doesn't matter if the Haber dragons are the Ural dragons or the Ural dragons. Why did the father and son fight each other? Chen Zhao asked curiously. Perhaps there were many examples of father and son fighting in Hell, but there was always a reason. It's simple. Strength, power, and bloodline. As long as the ancestral dragon exists, Herberlin will never be the ruler of the dragons. Ambition beats rationality, but power can't keep up with ambition, Xiao Shui said calmly. Even though Herberlin is the strongest son of the ancestral dragon, he can't defeat his father. Herberlin's failure is expected. The so-called banishment is to be locked in this training tower? No, every level above the 9 levels of the trial tower is a small world. The Haber Dragon's world on the 9th level is not small. They have some resources and can move around freely. The real banishment is far crueler than this. They are banished to the abyss, the void, or trapped in the chaos. They are bound and tortured by the distorted power. The 9th level of the trial tower is like heaven to them. They are bound by the rules that I set, and there are no more restrictions on them. In other words, no matter how many people I kill, no one will find trouble with me. As long as you have the ability, you can hunt as you please. Chen Zhao relaxed. Since the handsome guy said it was fine, he didn't have to worry about going overboard. Moreover, he didn't have to worry about exterminating the dragon clan. It seemed like the 9th floor was much bigger than he had imagined. Based on what the handsome young man said, every floor above the 9th floor was a small world, and also a prison. I wonder what kind of criminals are locked up on the 10th floor. When can I go up there and take a look? Even if he couldn't win, he would just die once. Of course, the first thing was to improve his strength. At night, Chen Zhao entered the river map again. Old Turtle was meditating like before. Chen Zhao didn't know that he had been meditating here for hundreds of years. Chen Zhao, who did you fight? Can someone beat you up like this in real life? Three-headed dragon, pure-blooded Western dragon, Chen Zhao said. I came in to rest. Oh, Old Turtle, I want to ask you something. What? I want to learn fire spells. Why do you want to learn fire spells? Among the 3 dragons I fought today, one of them is a silver dragon. It can turn its body into indestructible ice. It's harder than the hardest metal I know. I can't even chew through it. If I meet it again, I'm not sure if I'll be able to do anything. So you want to learn fire spells to restrain that silver dragon? Yes. Chen Zhao nodded. Idiot, Old Turtle said directly. Your personality determines your element, Old Turtle said directly. What you need to learn is not fire spells, but to strengthen yourself. You need to defeat your opponent with what you're best at, and use what you're best at to break the ice. But I can't do it. Then train. Train what you're best at until you can do it, Old Turtle said. Nothing is impossible. Are you sure it's possible? Chen Zhao really didn't have much confidence. Why not? Old Turtle said matter-of-factly. Do you think you can beat a tiger in the past? With that, Old Turtle snapped his fingers. Instantly, one of Old Turtle's clones appeared before Chen Zhao. Attack him. Do whatever you want. The Old Turtle was many times more powerful than the 3 black dragons. Even though it was only an avatar, Chen Zhao couldn't even move the silver dragon, let alone Old Turtle. Chen Zhao first used 3 days to recover. Then he started attacking Old Turtle's clone. However, even Chen Zhao's strongest attack was no different from scratching an itch for Old Turtle. You never had any hope from the start. How can an attack like this hurt me? You sound like I can hurt you just because I have hope, Chen Zhao said, rolling his eyes. How do you know you can't? Maybe this clone is just a bit stronger than you? Really? Chen Zhao was instantly energized. Fake. Old Turtle also rolled his eyes. This isn't a hot-blooded comic. Willpower is important, but you can't turn the tables in front of absolute power. You're denying my hard work. Chen Zhao looked at Old Turtle annoyed. So, my advice to you is to not rely on willpower to decide the outcome of a battle. What you need is absolute power. If you rely on winning every victory by the skin of your teeth, then you won't be far from death. What should I do? Don't try to learn what you're not good at. What you're not good at will always be what you're not good at. What you need to do is strengthen what you're best at, and then make it stronger. Chapter 1481. Chen Zhao fell into deep thought. Basically, Old Turtle wanted Chen Zhao to increase his attack power. Physical attacks, on the other hand, were speed, power, and the mass of the body when attacking. For example, with Chen Zhao's current power, if he attacked a wall with all his strength, in the end he wouldn't shatter the wall, but penetrate it. To increase his own mass, Chen Zhao could do it with 10,000 spells returned to 1 and dark assimilation. After 10,000 spells returned to 1, and fusing with his 6 clones, Chen Zhao would have the weight of 7 people. Of course, increasing his mass by several times was meaningless. But dark assimilation was different. The dark magma had weight. By fusing all the dark magma with himself, Chen Zhao could instantly increase his body or weapon's weight by a few hundred, or even a few thousand tons. However, this increase in weight was fixed, unless Chen Zhao increased the amount of the dark magma. But there weren't many chances for him to encounter half-blood dragons like the stillbirth monster and Mikados in that space. Or through cultivation, as his magic power increased, the amount of dark magma would increase as well. However, it would take too long to increase the amount of dark magma through cultivation. Increasing his cultivation to increase his strength was a long-term plan. The increase in strength was purely physical. It could be done through training, but normal training couldn't affect the increase in strength. Chen Zhao wasn't sure how strong he was right now. After all, there were no machines that could measure his current strength. Chen Zhao only had a rough idea. If he didn't use 10,000 spells returned to 1 and dark assimilation, it was estimated to be around 1,400 tons. However, this was only a rough estimate. He didn't know how different it was from the actual data. So if he wanted to increase his attack power, he could only increase his speed. Chen Zhao had just tried to break through the speed of sound last time, so he didn't have specific data on how fast he was. However, that was movement speed. The speed of his punches also affected his attack power. A normal person's maximum punching speed was around 6 to 7 times, which could last around a minute. If it was within 10 seconds, someone might be able to do it 8 times in 1 second. Chen Zhao's punching speed was much faster than a normal person's. However, there was one thing. The faster the punch, the weaker the power. This was the problem of accumulating power. Muscles had to accumulate power, and then use the elasticity of the muscles to fling the arm out, causing damage. Chen Zhao couldn't break this law of physics. Chen Zhao stood up, and went before Old Turtle's clone again. Puff! Chen Zhao's fists were as fast as lightning. If Chen Zhao was facing a normal person, they probably wouldn't even be able to see Chen Zhao's fist. Chen Zhao's fist landed on Old Turtle's clone. It's a beautiful punch, but it's too weak. Your muscles accumulate power too slowly, Old Turtle said in scientific terms. Chen Zhao felt the punch. His speed could be even faster, and his strength could be even greater. Chen Zhao tried again. This time, Chen Zhao started throwing out sonic punches continuously. In 30 minutes, Chen Zhao had lost count of how many punches he had thrown. He was unable to accumulate more power. Train your speed first. Your current speed hasn't reached its peak yet. Old Turtle said. You don't have enough speed, and you don't have enough power. You want to train both at the same time? That's clearly impossible. Train your speed to the limit first, and then think about how to release power at the limit. When kinetic energy and potential energy were superimposed, the power would naturally multiply. Just like a bullet, the results of a bullet thrown by hand and a bullet fired by a gun were obviously different. With the same mass, the potential and kinetic energy that a gun could release was far greater than a bullet thrown by hand. Chen Zhao tried his best to speed up his punches. There was a high-frequency whistling sound in the air. Chen Zhao calculated silently. His maximum speed could reach 80 punches per second. It was about 10 times the maximum speed of a human. Every punch could exceed the speed of sound. However, punching and retracting were different from running in a straight line. His muscles couldn't move continuously. Chen Zhao had to make his muscles remember this feeling. Train continuously. This was probably the limit, right? Chen Zhao looked at Old Turtle. No, far from it. There are too many extra movements in your punches and retractions. You can be faster. If I'm faster, I'll be a fast man. Okay, that's a bit cold. Chen Zhao grinned. I'll be the fastest man in the world. Actually, Chen Zhao was already close to his maximum speed. By continuously fixing the flaws in the details, his speed had increased to 120 punches per second. At this level, he was basically as fast as lightning. Suddenly, Chen Zhao thought of the dragon's method of accumulating power. Was this from Black Dragon's memory? Dragons' body structures were different from humans. However, in terms of physics, they also had to follow the laws of physics. On the other hand, Black Dragon could attack with all his strength in every part of his body. This was related to Black Dragon's unique release of power. It didn't belong to the dragon race, but the Black Dragon. Every member of the dragon clan had their own unique characteristics. Over the course of hundreds and thousands of years, they would constantly study their own bodies and obtain even greater power. Black Dragon was the same. He had a unique attack method. This was also the reason why the Black Dragon's attacks were so unstoppable the first time he fought it. This required the support of Dragon's might. However, he didn't release Dragon's might. Instead, he used it on himself. It was a very special method. He used Dragon's might to stimulate his muscles and make them react. Dragon's might couldn't be used on other dragons, but that was because they also had Dragon's might to block it, so it couldn't be used. However, it was effective on him. As long as he controlled it well, he wouldn't be suppressed. Moreover, Chen Zhao realized that Black Dragon's method wasn't difficult at all. He quickly got the hang of it. It seemed to be because he'd absorbed Black Dragon's soul fragment. Chen Zhao's fists started turning red. It was like metal being rubbed against high-speed air. This method didn't just increase the power of his punches. Even his speed was increased. Suddenly, Chen Zhao's fist smashed into Old Turtle's chest. His fist caved in. Then, Old Turtle spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. Chen Zhao stared at Old Turtle in shock. Old Turtle, you did well. I don't have anything else to teach you. The future belongs to you young people. I can finally rest in peace. Old Turtle's head tilted to the side, and he stopped breathing. Chen Zhao turned to look at Old Turtle's real body, speechless. Just then, another clone pounced over, face full of grief. What's wrong, junior brother? Wake up. Chapter 1482. Chen Zhao watched as Old Turtle's two clones finished their two-man show. Of course, most of his attention was still focused on cultivation. Chen Zhao realized that his muscles were aching. Chen Zhao was confused. Why was it aching so quickly? He had to know that if he used all returns to one and dark assimilation at the same time, he wouldn't feel tired even if he fought at full power for 3 hours. But now he felt tired after only half an hour. It seemed that using Black Dragon's method to stimulate the muscles would increase their fatigue. In other words, this was a fighting method that exceeded the limit. In a short time, one's combat ability would increase in all aspects. Strength and speed would increase by leaps and bounds, but it would also increase the burden on the muscles. After Old Turtle finished his act, he was finally serious. You seemed a bit special just now. You didn't look normal. I found a method to stimulate the muscles that can increase my explosive power in a short time. But it can only last half an hour at most. This is not part of your training plan. Although this kind of technique can indeed boost your fighting power in a short period of time, it will also harm your body. Every human sect has similar techniques, but most of them will be left with a lot of injuries in their later years after using them. It's all because their bodies have been overloaded. When you use this method, it means that you have to use it, Chen Zhao said. The decision isn't in your hands anymore. Chen Zhao nodded. Chen Zhao analyzed it from a medical point of view. Dragon's might stimulated the muscles to contract, giving him explosive power in a short time. Muscle contraction brought about high explosive power, but at the same time, it also increased the accumulation of lactic acid. However, the release of lactic acid was mostly because the muscles weren't used to this kind of high-intensity exercise. If he could get used to this kind of high-intensity exercise, he might be able to use this kind of explosive power. Of course, there was another possibility, which was muscle fiber damage. This possibility was relatively small. Chen Zhao was quite confident in his body. Muscle fiber was the toughest tissue in the human body. It covered the entire body. This was used to protect the human body. Even fat people had muscle fibers, but they were covered under the fat and skin layer. Chen Zhao's heart jumped. The golden key could continuously make him evolve. However, in the past, it was all due to the changes in the external environment that led to evolution and adaptation. In that case, could he use this kind of training to activate the evolution of the golden key, allowing himself to adapt to the explosive power? Seeing the change in Chen Zhao's eyes, Old Turtle asked, "Have you thought of a way?" "Try again," Chen Zhao said. With that, he used the stimulation method again. "You don't seem to be listening to me," Old Turtle said meaningfully. "I have my own ideas," Chen Zhao replied. In an instant, Chen Zhao threw out hundreds of punches. Using the muscle stimulation method, Chen Zhao could clearly feel the rhythm and changes of each muscle. Muscles were not lumps. If you looked through a microscope, you could see that the muscles were made up of thin lines of fibers. Chen Zhao's senses were not only external, but also internal. This was called inner vision. This method was not only used by Taoists, but also did not belong to any single faction or religion. As long as one reached a certain level of cultivation, they would be able to do it. Chen Zhao could even sense every fiber, and even control and stimulate them. If Chen Zhao needed it, he could supercharge his muscles and make them expand, thus becoming Mr. Bodybuilder. However, that was foolish. Large muscles did not bring about greater combat power. Chen Zhao even admired those kinds of bodybuilders. They had no sense of beauty at all. Chen Zhao did not know what was the point of people who relied on steroids and hormones to maintain their muscles for a long time. The end result of those bodybuilders was that their lifespan was half of a normal person's. They might suffer from all kinds of diseases in their 30s or 40s. Their morbidity rate was also several times higher than normal people. They looked extremely strong, but their immune systems and bodily functions had collapsed long ago. For example, Gaia. She had been training her muscles to contract. Because her muscles were too big, it affected her combat power. Of course, it was because she was already tall and had been training intensely for a long time. So as long as she controlled her diet and trained at the same time, she could easily lose weight. Chen Zhao also realized this. The key to increasing his combat power was in his muscles. This was a problem that Chen Zhao had neglected in the past. In the past, Chen Zhao had been improving his body in magic. As long as he succeeded, this method of improvement was obvious. But he did not dig into his potential. Chen Zhao kept adjusting his muscle structure, arranging and distributing them in the most optimal way. He also released a sliver of dragon's might. Suddenly, Old Turtle raised an eyebrow and looked at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao could feel the changes in his body. In an instant, hundreds of fist shadows appeared in front of Old Turtle's avatar. Boom, 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 it had changed. Everything had changed. From a distance of more than 2 meters, Chen Zhao actually sent out hundreds of huge fist shadows. The fist shadows landed on Old Turtle's avatar, but did not cause any damage. But Chen Zhao could feel the qualitative change in his attack power. The entire process was under Chen Zhao's control. Chen Zhao had adjusted and optimized it bit by bit. Then, he combined it with muscle stimulation to achieve this result. In the past, no matter how much power Chen Zhao used, he could not do this. There wasn't any magic involved in this. He used pure strength and speed, and a sliver of dragon's might to attack from a distance. Yes, this was the feeling. Chen Zhao did not stop. He kept releasing fist shadows. The most effective attack distance is around 5 meters. Beyond 5 meters, the power of your punches will decrease. Below 5 meters, the power of your punches won't be able to reach its peak. Old Turtle's avatar said as he retreated to around 5 meters. Let's have a real battle. How about it? Old Turtle asked. Chen Zhao was stunned. Real battle? Real battle with Old Turtle? This was something Chen Zhao had never thought of. Even if it was just an avatar. It was meaningless, right? If he wanted to fight, he would fight someone of the same level or slightly higher. What was the point of fighting Old Turtle? Wait. Careful, I'm coming. Chen Zhao saw Old Turtle punch. It was the same fist shadows as his. Chen Zhao did not dare to be careless. He threw out hundreds of fist shadows in an instant. Boom! Chen Zhao lost consciousness. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.